McKeel's footsteps hammered down the narrow hallway, each step landing harder than the last. The polished tips of his dress shoes scuffed the cheap apartment building carpet, a sharp contrast to the marble floors he was used to walking across in buckhead boardrooms. His tie hung loose around his neck, his jaw clenched so tight a vein jumped at his temple. The hallway on Serena's floor smelled faintly of takeout and baby powder. A television droned from one unit. Somebody laughed 2 doors down, but all of that blurred into background noise for him. He had one focus, the beige door at the end of the corridor with a peeling gold 3 billions on it. He stopped there and stared at it for half a beat, chest rising and falling too fast. This is ridiculous, he told himself. You sign the checks, you send the support, you give her space. That's what everyone said. That's what your parents said. That's what the lawyers said. But the email from his attorney that afternoon had lit a fire in him. She refuses to meet, refuses mediation, and is still at that same address, the updated read. Still here, still shutting him out, still acting like he was some stranger, not the man who had once held her hand at City Hall and promised forever. His palm balled into a fist. He would not be ignored in his own childless life while she acted like she held all the power. He knocked once, hard. Serena. Silence. Heat rose in his chest. He knocked again, louder. The door rattled lightly in its frame. Serena, open this door, right now. A door down the hall cracked open, a neighbor peeked out, then quickly drew back. Atlanta might be a big city, but this building felt small tonight, like every ear in the place could hear Michiel, Bradford's temper echoing down the tread-worn hallway. His voice dropped lower, tighter. We are not doing this anymore. I'm not sending another signature, another transfer, another response through lawyers while you hide here like I never existed. Open the door. Inside, he heard the faint scrape of movement. Something shifted, very soft. A quiet shushing sound followed, like someone soothing someone else. Michiel frowned, his anger jostled by confusion. There was no one else, he reminded himself. She had told every mutual friend not to talk to him about her. She had vanished from the circles they once shared. She'd taken the settlement, moved to this modest building and cut him out. She was the one who walked away, he insisted in his mind. She was the one who refused every attempt at a conversation, every email, every message. That's what he clung to on nights when sleep refused to come. The story that she had given up first. The deadbolt scraped, the chain slid, the doorknob turned. The door opened just enough for him to see her face. She looked different. Her curls were pulled back into a loose puff. A few tendrils stuck to her forehead from sweat. There were faint shadows under her eyes, the kind you get from too many nights with too little rest. She wore a soft, oversized t-shirt and leggings. No makeup, no jewelry, no trace of the librarian who used to match earrings to her book-themed tote bag. Even so, she was still Serena, the same deep brown skin he used to trace with his fingers. The same mouth that once laughed at his terrible jokes, the same eyes that used to light up when she saw him. Those eyes now looked cautious, tired, guarded. Michiel, she said quietly. His anger surged back. Just hearing his name and her voice pulled up everything. Their wedding vows, the attorney's emails, his mother's tight-lipped comments, the empty side of his king-sized bed. That's all you've got? He snapped, forcing a tight laugh. Just Michiel like I'm the mailman? A small sound came from behind the door, somewhere near her chest. Michiel glanced down on instinct, but the door was still angled, blocking his view of most of her body. What is this, Serena? He pressed. You ignore my calls, you make me talk to you through lawyers, you keep me in the dark about every decision, and now you're just standing here like none of it matters. She flinched at the edge in his voice. You changed your number, she said softly. Your assistant screened every call. The lawyers made it clear you wanted everything handled on paper. So don't stand in this hallway and act surprised that paper is what you got. He opened his mouth to fire back, but the small sound behind the door came again. A tiny breathy whimper, followed by a rustle. He stopped mid-sentence. Who is in there? He demanded. You moved on that fast. Hurt colored the words before he could tame it. The thought of some new man in her space, in her life, cut deeper than he would admit even to himself. Serena's eyes flashed with anger for the first time. You need to lower your voice, she whispered sharply. Right now. Oh, now you care about what I do. He shot back, but something about the way she held herself snagged his attention. Her shoulders were curved slightly inward, like she was sheltering something. Her hand was pressed firmly against the front of her shirt, not in a defensive gesture, but in a protective one. He took a step forward, and the door swung a little wider under his palm. The hallway light slid past him into the apartment. His world stopped. The reason her hand had been pressed to her chest was because her arm cradled a bundle of soft pastel fabric. Nestled against her was the smallest face he had ever seen, cheeks round and full, eyes closed in sleep. A newborn, less than a month old by the look of him. Tiny fingers peeped out from the blanket, curled into fists against Serena's collarbone. A blue hospital cap still clung to a head of fine dark curls. The baby shifted at the change in light and murmured, lips puckering. Serena's hand rose automatically to rub the tiny back in slow circles. McKeel's voice evaporated. Whatever tirade he had come here to deliver died in his throat. The hallway, the building, the city, the board meetings, the lawyers, the bank accounts. Everything dropped away in his mind. There was only that baby and the way the blanket folded across Serena's arms. He stepped forward without realizing his feet had moved. Serena. His voice came out raw, barely above a whisper. What? Who? Her gaze held his, wide and unflinching now, but no longer angry. Just full of tired sadness. She shifted the baby slightly so he could see more clearly. He saw the nose first, straight and familiar. The shape of the chin, too, tugged at his memory. The baby's skin was a warm brown that matched Serena's, but there was something else in the features, something that looked back at him like a reflection in a much smaller mirror. He swallowed, hard. Whose baby is that? He asked, though some part of him already knew. He could feel the answer in the way his chest seized up, in the way his fingers tingled like they wanted to reach out and steady themselves on the doorframe. Serena's eyes glistened. She pressed her lips together for a second, as if choosing whether to say it. You already know, she replied quietly. He shook his head once. No, don't do that. Don't speak in riddles, Serena. Not today, just answer me. She took a breath, tightening her grip around the sleeping child, then eased the baby's face fully into view. He is your son, she said. Mikhail, this is your baby. For a moment the hallway tilted. His body swayed forward, knee joints loosened by what felt like an inner quake. He reached for the wall, fingers pressing into chipped paint. What? He choked out. Your son, she repeated slower, so there could be no room for misunderstanding. You and I might be done on paper, but this child is ours. He was growing inside me while we were signing documents and talking through lawyers. The baby made a soft, squeaky sound in his sleep, as if answering to his name before he even had one. The tiny chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm against Serena's shirt. Mikhail stared, his mind racing through months he thought had been only about his own pain, nights alone in his penthouse, hours spent at the office, arguments with his parents, where he told them they had taken everything from him. All that time, Serena had been carrying this child without him. His chest tightened with something sharp and unfamiliar, not the clean anger he had walked in with, but a messy mix of awe, grief, guilt, and a love that hit so suddenly it almost knocked him over. You never told me, he managed. How old is he? 2 weeks, she answered. He came early. 2 weeks. 14 days of this small life existing in the world without him knowing. 14 days of late-night feedings, diapers, doctors, fear, joy, shared with everyone except him. The knowledge stung. Why didn't you call? He demanded, a little too harshly, the old defensiveness kicking up in self-protection. Serena's jaw flexed. Do you really want to have that conversation while you're still talking to me like I'm on trial? She asked quietly. Her question sliced through his sharp tone, leaving it exposed for what it was. He looked at her again, really looked this time. This wasn't the Serena he had argued with in law offices. This was a woman whose body had just done something tremendous, whose emotions were probably sitting right under her skin. Her t-shirt had a faint milk stain on one shoulder. Her hair wasn't styled for anyone's approval. There was a softness around her middle that hadn't been there before, a physical reminder that this child had been carried under her heart. He saw the tiredness, yes, but he also saw a glow he recognized from early pictures of himself as a baby, held in his mother's arms. It was the quiet fierceness of someone who had decided this child would be loved, no matter what grown-up drama swirled around them. His hand rose, then hovered in the air between them. "Can I?" he asked, nodding toward the baby, the words coming out unsure. Billionaire, CEO, accustomed to giving orders everywhere he went, now asking permission to take one step closer. Serena looked down at the bundle against her. The baby's tiny mouth yawned, his face scrunching before relaxing again. She lifted her eyes back to Michiel's. There was a storm of history between them. Weddings, fights, signatures, slammed doors, but also the memory of a man who once ate too much pepper in her mother's gumbo and laughed with tears in his eyes. She shifted sideways, opening the door fully. "You can come in," she said, "but keep your voice low. He just fell asleep." He stepped over the threshold slowly, as if crossing from one universe into another. The apartment was small but warm, a thrift store couch with a knitted throw, a bookshelf stuffed with children's stories and history texts, a rocking chair in the corner with a baby blanket draped over the back. A portable bassinet sat near the sofa, a tiny hat resting on its edge. Serena moved to the couch and eased down carefully, cradling the baby as she sat. Michiel closed the door behind him, suddenly very aware that he was in her space again for the first time since lawyers had gotten involved. He stood there awkwardly, not sure what to do with his hands. In this room, his net worth meant nothing. Stock prices could not soothe a newborn. Share percentages could not fix months of silence. She looked up at him, reading the hesitation on his face. "You can sit," she said, nodding to the other end of the couch. He obeyed, lowering himself slowly, leaving space between them. His knees bumped the coffee table, where an open parenting book lay face down next to a half-finished cup of herbal tea. Up close, the baby seemed even smaller. The blanket had a pattern of tiny stars. One little fist had wiggled free and rested against Serena's collarbone. Fingers splayed. Michiel's fingers twitched. "You named him?" he asked hoarsely. "I did," she said. "But we can talk about that later. Right now he knows me as the person who feeds him and holds him, not the name on his birth certificate." He nodded slowly. That comment held weight he knew he'd have to unpack. He gazed at the baby, then at Serena. The question that had been simmering beneath his anger finally reached the surface, stripped of defensiveness. "Why didn't you want me here for this?" he whispered. She took a long breath, the kind you take when you're deciding whether to reopen a wound for the sake of healing it properly. "Do you really think I didn't want that?" Serena asked. The edge in her voice had faded. What remained was pure hurt. The baby stirred, reminding both of them that any raised volume might wake him, so every word stayed low and careful. "You changed numbers. Your lawyer made it clear I was supposed to go through him. Your mother showed up at my job with a check," she said, meeting his eyes. "At some point I stopped believing you wanted to hear from me at all, so yes, I made decisions. I chose peace for myself and for him. You weren't supposed to find out like this, but here we are." Those last 3 words hung heavy in the air. Here we are, a billionaire ex-husband on a second-hand couch, a woman he once vowed to protect, now sitting inches away with his child against her chest. A tiny life asleep between 2 adults who had spent more time arguing in conference rooms than talking in living rooms. Out in the hallway, someone walked past humming. A car horn sounded faintly outside. The city moved on, unaware that this small room was holding the turning point of 3 lives. The baby made a soft noise in his sleep, his cheek pressed into Serena's shirt. Michiel leaned forward, voice suddenly gentle. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "Serena, I swear to you, I didn't know. If I had—" He trailed off because the list of would have and should have stretched further than he could see. He would have gone to appointments. He would have bought every bottle in the store. He would have sat in waiting rooms, rubbed her back through contractions, cut umbilical cords, tried to be the man he hadn't managed to be during the worst of their fights. Serena watched his face, reading all the unsaid words there. For the first time since she had opened the door, her shoulders loosened a fraction. "Whether you knew or not, he's here now," she said softly. "And you're here now, too. That's what we have to deal with." He nodded slowly. "You're right," he agreed. "You're right." His hand rose again, hesitated once more in the space between them. "Can I touch him?" he asked. She looked at his hand, at his face. then bent her arm slightly so the baby's tiny wrist turned toward him. Gently, she murmured. His fingertips brushed the faintly wrinkled skin. It was warm and unbelievably soft. That small arm twitched, fingers curling. Michiel's eyes filled with tears so fast he had to blink rapidly to clear them. This was no abstract future child he had once talked about in vague terms during long drives. This was a real person, already here, already breathing, already making little sounds, already imprinting on Serena's scent and heartbeat. A knot in his chest loosened and tightened at the same time. His entire script for this visit had been blown apart. The anger that had pushed him up the stairs felt small and childish compared to the weight of the situation in front of him. The man who had burst into the building ready to argue was gone. In his place sat a man quietly touching the tiny wrist of a child who carried his features. The narrator's voice slid gently over the moment. Some love stories crash and burn quietly. Some fall apart in courtrooms and bank statements. Some end with people walking away and never looking back. But every now and then, life waits until two people have broken each other's hearts, walked through separate valleys, and then brings them face to face with something that forces them to look up. Tonight, that something was 6 pounds of soft skin and sleepy breaths, wrapped in a star-patterned blanket. Welcome back to Stories by Mr. Flex, where life's most powerful lessons come wrapped in unforgettable tales. If you're new to this family, thank you for joining us. Please hit the subscribe button because it helps us share stories like this on YouTube. If you've ever loved someone and still watch the relationship slip through your fingers, if you've ever had to choose between family approval and your own heart, stay with this story. You're about to see how a billionaire husband went from bursting in full of rage to sitting quietly in front of a newborn who carries his face, and how that moment forced him to confront everything he thought he knew about love, pride, and responsibility. Before we keep going, do me a favor. If you believe children deserve both truth and love, tap that like button so this story can reach more people. Drop a comment saying love is hard, but worth it, so YouTube knows this family deserves to be seen. Now let's go back to where it all started. Same city, same skyline, two hearts who had no idea their choices would lead to this night. Long before Michiel stood in Serena's doorway staring at a newborn. They had lived in the same city like two radio stations playing different songs over the same airwaves. Atlanta wrapped around both of them, but it spoke a different language to each. For Serena, Atlanta wasn't just a dot on a map. It was the squeak of old wooden pews on Sunday morning and the thump of bass from passing cars on Saturday afternoon. It was the smell of fried chicken drifting from corner stores, the clink of spoons and sweet tea glasses at family dinners, and the sound of her mom yelling, "Rena, you better not be late for church." She grew up on the southwest side, in a cozy brick house that had belonged to her grandparents before her parents. The front yard had a stubborn patch of grass that never quite filled in, but the porch was perfect for sitting with cousins and swatting mosquitoes in summer. On one such summer evening, teenage Serena sat on that porch with a worn paperback in her hand, legs tucked under her. The streetlights had flickered on, glowing over kids playing tag in the road and neighbors chatting near their mailboxes. "Baby, you need to give that book a rest," Cassandra called from the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "You've been in those pages all day. Come taste this macaroni before I take it out the oven." Serena looked up from the story, smiling. "Just one more chapter, Mama." "Uh-huh," Cassandra said with a knowing look. "You said that 2 chapters ago. Put a bookmark in it and bring yourself to this kitchen." "Yes, ma'am," Serena sighed, but there was affection in it. She slid a scrap of paper into the book and followed the smell of baked cheese and spices into the house. The kitchen felt like the center of the universe, pots on the stove, gospel music humming softly from a little radio, and her father, Pastor Otis, sitting at the table with a Bible open and a notebook of sermon notes beside it. He wore his usual button-up shirt with the sleeves rolled just below the elbow. He looked up as Serena walked in. "You still devouring those stories?" he asked, smiling. "They're good," she replied, grabbing a spoon off the counter to stir the pot her mother nodded toward. "Mama, taste?" Cassandra leaned over, gave the sauce a quick taste off the spoon, and nodded in satisfaction. All right. You're starting to season like you got some sense. Pastor Otis chuckled. That girl's got more than sense. She's got a brain God expects her to use. Serena smirked. See, Daddy gets it. Cassandra rolled her eyes in mock annoyance. I get it too. I just don't want your brain so buried in those books you forget there's a world out here that needs you. That line landed on Serena's heart and stayed there. A world out here that needs you. She didn't know it yet, but that simmering desire to help others would eventually place a paint roller in her hand at a habitat site and a stranger named Mike at her side. Sundays were sacred in their house. Every week, they piled into the family car and drove to church in the old Fourth Ward. Serena grew up watching her father preach about grace and justice, not as abstract ideas, but as concrete acts, helping neighbors, mentoring kids, showing up for people who got pushed aside. On a particular Sunday, when she was about 10, she remembered looking at the front row during service. Older members in their best suits and dresses, a young mom bouncing a baby on her knee, Mr. Johnson from down the street nodding along to the choir. Her father's voice rose and fell, talking about love that crossed lines people tried to draw. Y'all know there are folks who think certain neighborhoods are better than others, he said that day, walking slowly across the pulpit. Folks who think certain families matter more than others, but God doesn't check your zip code to decide if you're worthy. He didn't know it then, but his daughter would cling to those words years later when she walked into rooms where people sized her up before she even spoke. After church, the community didn't scatter immediately. They lingered. Kids chased each other in the parking lot. Grown folks debated sports or discussed the latest city news. Serena would often stand beside her grandma Edna, who seemed to know everyone. Rena, don't stand with your shoulders all slumped, Grandma Edna would murmur. You're a child of God. Stand like you know that. Yes, ma'am, Serena would answer automatically, straightening her back, but she meant it. Her house was full of voices telling her she mattered. Her mother graded papers at the kitchen table, muttering about kids who just needed someone to believe in them. Her father came home from hospital visits and funerals, reminding the family to be grateful for everyday blessings. Her grandmother shared stories about Atlanta when she was young, about marches and meetings, about how far they had come and how far there still was to go. On warm nights, neighbors pulled lawn chairs into front yards. Someone turned on old school R&B, and the air carried the sounds of laughter and music. Serena grew up breathing that in, absorbing the message that joy and struggle often sat side by side, but you made room for joy anyway. She went to public schools where the hallways were noisy and teachers worked miracles with limited resources. She spent afternoons at the local library, volunteering to shelve books long before she ever thought of working in one. She saw kids discover stories that looked like them for the first time and felt a little swell in her chest every time. By the time she finished college and returned to Atlanta as a children's librarian, it felt only natural to her to volunteer with organizations that helped families secure housing, get access to books, and stay rooted in their neighborhoods. If you asked her to describe her life before Michelle, she would talk about potlucks, choir rehearsals, late-night calls with cousins, church meetings, kids at story time, and stacks of paperbacks on her nightstand. The world on the other side of town might as well have been another country. McKeel's Atlanta had the same street names and interstate exits, but a very different script. He grew up in Buckhead, where brick was ornamental, not functional necessity, and lawns were trimmed by people hired to do it. The Bradford estate sat behind iron gates that glided open silently when his father's car approached. Security cameras watched the driveway. Gardeners tended to hedges that never dared grow wild. As a boy, Michiel learned how to knot a tie before he learned how to ride a bike without supervision. There were always eyes on him, tutors, nannies, waitstaff, his parents' friends. Everyone polite, everyone professional, everyone aware that the Bradford name carried weight. Inside the house, everything gleamed. Chandeliers, polished wood floors, framed photos from charity events. He remembered one particular evening as a teenager, standing stiffly at the top of the sweeping staircase in an uncomfortable jacket. Stand up straight, Michiel, Evelyn said, adjusting the collar of his shirt. You slouch when you're nervous. I'm not nervous, he muttered. You are, she replied, smoothing a crease with practiced fingers. This is the first time you're hosting guests for the scholarship dinner. You'll do fine. Just remember everyone in that room has expectations." He looked past her toward the foyer, where caterers moved carefully with trays of champagne glasses. His father, William, spoke quietly with the man in an expensive suit. They both laughed at something Michiel couldn't hear. "Expectations about what?" Michiel asked. Evelyn answered as if the question were obvious. "About you. About who you'll become. You're a Bradford. People watch what you do." What she didn't say, but he understood, was that people also watched whom you chose to stand beside you. From a young age, he was ushered through private schools with manicured campuses. His friends came from families whose names showed up on donor walls. After-school activities weren't just hobbies, they were strategic choices: debate, student government, internships arranged through his father's connections. There were summers at the lake house with the families of business partners, afternoons at the country club, where staff greeted his parents by name, holiday parties where women in pearl earrings compared notes on their children's achievements, while servers replenished hors d'oeuvres. At one such gathering in his late teens, he stood in a cluster of parents and their sons while the adults talked business over dessert. His father mentioned his plans for the company's expansion. "Of course, one day this will all be in his hands," William said, placing a hand on Michiel's shoulder. There was pride in his voice, but also something heavier, like responsibility disguised as a compliment. One of the other men chuckled. "And I'm sure he'll choose a fine partner to match the empire." The comment drew polite laughter. Someone mentioned the daughter of a family friend, a girl who'd been at many of the same events since childhood. "That would be quite the match," a woman remarked. "Two strong families, one very secure future." Michiel smiled politely and changed the subject. No one asked what kind of partner he actually wanted. The assumption was that he would pick someone who fit naturally into this world, someone used to cocktail hours, quiet displays of wealth, and the unspoken rules of old Atlanta money. His parents weren't cruel. They loved him in the way they knew how, by planning his future, smoothing his path, and reminding him of the long line of Bradfords that preceded him. But their love came bundled with expectations that felt less like hugs and more like handcuffs. He found pockets of relief outside those circles. In college, when he discovered coding, he finally felt in control of something that didn't belong to his family. Lines of code didn't care about last names. Software didn't care whether your grandparents had a certain zip code. If you solved the problem, you solved the problem. By his mid-20s, he had co-founded a tech company that took off faster than anyone expected. By his late 20s, he had millions. By 30, the M had turned into a B, though he rarely said that out loud. With success came more of what he'd grown up around: galas, investors, society pages. His parents were thrilled. Their son wasn't just continuing the family wealth, he was multiplying it. But late at night, when he sat in his penthouse staring out at the city lights, he often felt a hollowness he couldn't quite explain. He had done everything right: top schools, disciplined work, calculated risks, strategic giving. He was on the boards of charities, signed checks larger than his first salary, posed for photos beside oversized donation plaques. Yet there was a quiet ache under all of that, a sense that in rooms full of people, he was still strangely alone. He dated women from his world, lawyers, consultants, other heirs to family businesses. They were smart and polished, knew which fork to pick up and how to charm his parents. Some relationships lasted months, a couple stretched to a year, but nothing took root in a way that felt safe and real. There were moments when he considered stepping outside that bubble, but each time he brought someone slightly different to an event, he saw the look in his parents' eyes shift. Conversations at home afterward would stay polite but pointed. Compatibility is important, Evelyn would say over tea. Shared values, shared background. It just makes life easier. Life isn't supposed to be easy. Not all the time, he'd reply. Hard is fine, William would add. Impossible is not. They never said outright that race mattered to them. They didn't need to. It seeped into offhand comments, the way they described certain neighborhoods, the people they considered our kind of crowd. Michiel filed those moments away in the corner of his mind where he stored things that didn't sit right with him. He didn't think of himself as someone who shared those biases. He gave to organizations that supported education in under-resourced areas. He attended events celebrating black entrepreneurs and artists. He rolled up his sleeves at volunteer builds. He genuinely believed that people should be judged on character and effort, but he had never brought someone like Serena home before. He had never fallen in love with someone whose background would clash so sharply with his parents' unspoken criteria. Before that could even happen, life nudged them closer in quieter ways. On one side of the city, Serena stood in front of a group of kids at story time, animatedly reading from a picture book about a little black girl who wanted to be an astronaut. The children sat crisscrossed on a colorful rug, eyes wide. On the other side, in a glass-walled conference room, Mikhail stared at a slide deck while a junior executive talked about projected growth. His mind drifted to the monthly report he had received from one of the charities his company supported. There was a note about the impact of affordable housing on children's reading levels. He kept coming back to the same question. With all the resources he had, what was he actually doing that made a difference in someone's everyday life? One night, sitting alone at his kitchen island with a takeout salad, he opened an email about a big build weekend organized by a housing nonprofit. Volunteers would be working in a neighborhood not far from where Serena's parents lived, though he didn't know that yet. His assistant had put it on his calendar with a note, "You don't have to go in person, we already sent the check." He said out loud, just to hear it, "I think I do have to go." The next day, while Serena was walking home from the bus stop, she saw a flyer posted near a neighborhood store, volunteers needed for a build project in Sylvan Hills. She paused, grocery bags in hand. The image showed a half-constructed home and a small caption about helping families build their future. Her heart tugged. She already had a full schedule, library shifts, church commitments, helping her mom with errands. But this felt like the kind of thing her father always preached about, faith in action. That evening, she folded laundry at the dining table while Cassandra graded math quizzes at the other end. "Mama," Serena said. "Mm-hmm," Cassandra replied without looking up. "Do you think I'm doing enough for the community?" Serena asked. Cassandra raised her head, pen pausing over a half-marked paper. "What kind of question is that? I mean, I love the library, and I love the kids, but I saw this flyer today. Habitat is doing a build over in Sylvan Hills." She hesitated. "I'm thinking about signing up." Her mother tilted her head, considering. "Do you want to?" "I do," Serena answered. "Feels right." "Then it sounds like you have your answer," Cassandra said. "We can get somebody else to help me pick up groceries that day. Go sweat for a good reason." Serena smiled. "Thanks, Mama." On the other side of town, in a much larger kitchen, Mikhail told his parents over dinner, "I'm going to be out most of Saturday." "More meetings?" William asked. "Volunteering," Mikhail replied. "Habitat build in Sylvan Hills." Evelyn arched a delicate brow. "Can't they handle that with your donation?" "They can," he said, "but I want to be there too." William shrugged. "If it makes you happy." Evelyn dabbed her mouth with her napkin. "Just don't overdo it. You have the charity ball next weekend. You'll need your energy for that." Mikhail nodded automatically, but his mind was already on something else. He pictured dirty jeans instead of tailored suits, a hammer in his hand instead of a glass of champagne, real conversation instead of small talk about stock portfolios. He had no idea that a few miles away, Serena was picturing something similar, old sneakers instead of heels, work gloves instead of paperback pages, laughter with strangers instead of whispers about what she was doing with her life. 2 lives, 2 families, 2 sets of expectations, all moving steadily toward a Saturday in Sylvan Hills that neither of them realized would change everything. The city lights blinked over houses and highways that night like scattered stars. Somewhere on the southwest side, Serena set an early alarm and laid out clothes she didn't mind getting paint on. In Buckhead, Mikhail tossed an old ball cap onto a chair, deciding it might be a good idea to dress down so no one treated him differently. They slept under the same Atlanta sky, unaware that by the time the sun set on the next day, their separate stories would no longer be separate. Only a few boards and a bucket of paint stood between them. Saturday morning arrived bright and warm, the kind of Atlanta morning where the sun feels close enough to touch and the air carries the soft promise of a good day. Serena woke before her alarm, lying still for a moment as sunlight streamed through her curtains. She sat up, tied her braids into a high ponytail, and reached for the yellow bandana she used for volunteer days. It was faded at the corners, but her grandmother always said it brought good energy. Serena believed her. She moved quietly around the room, slipping into comfortable jeans and a soft t-shirt, humming an old R&B melody under her breath. Her mother peeked into the doorway, still in her robe. "You heading out already?" Cassandra asked. "Yeah," Serena said softly, grabbing her water bottle. "Didn't want to wake y'all." Cassandra smiled that familiar warm smile. "Go on, baby. Help build somebody's future today." Serena gave her mom a quick hug before heading out. The sky was a bright, cloudless blue, perfect weather for a build. Across town, Michiel was doing something he rarely did, wearing old jeans. The faded denim felt odd compared to the suits and tailored pants he was used to. He checked himself in the mirror one last time, grabbed a baseball cap and took a deep breath. His penthouse had been quiet lately, too quiet. Stepping out into the fresh air and doing honest physical work felt like the reset his soul needed. He drove toward Sylvan Hills with the windows down, letting the warm air blow through the car. When he turned onto the street of the build site, he saw volunteers gathered around stacks of lumber, buckets of nails, and tools lined up on tarps. At that exact moment, on the other side of the lot, Serena stepped out of her car, tying the strap of her work gloves as she surveyed the partially built home. Her heart always swelled at the sight of community members coming together. A coordinator shouted instructions, handing out assignments. Serena found herself in the painting crew, which made her smile. She loved watching colors transform a blank wall into something warm and welcoming. Michiel, arriving quietly, signed in and asked where he could help. "Painting crew needs hands," the coordinator said. So he walked in that direction, toward the same house where Serena was measuring a wall. Serena stretched up on her toes, trying to reach a high corner with her paintbrush. Her shoes squeaked against the plastic sheet beneath her. The sun warmed the back of her neck. She blew a stray braid out of her face and tried again. A quiet voice behind her said, "Need a hand with that?" She turned and froze for a second. A man stood there holding a paint roller, wearing worn jeans, a plain t-shirt, and a cap pulled low. He looked like any other volunteer, except he didn't. There was something striking about him. Maybe the contrast of his simple clothes and his soft, unexpectedly warm smile. Serena blinked, then laughed lightly. "Yeah, I guess I do. This wall is determined to beat me." "I doubt that," the man said, stepping closer. "Walls are pushovers." She chuckled. "We'll see." He reached up easily and began rolling paint in long, smooth strokes, covering the spot she couldn't reach. Serena watched for a second, impressed. "You've done this before?" she asked. "Once or twice," he said modestly. "Thanks," she replied, dipping her brush for the next section. "I'm Serena." "Mike," he said without hesitation. She nodded. Simple name, simple introduction. Something refreshing about that. They worked in comfortable silence at first, painting in slow, synchronized motions. Then Serena broke the quiet. "So, Mike, what brings you out here today? You don't look like you're running from a desk job or anything." He laughed. "Actually, I spent too much time behind a desk. Thought I needed a break. And this seemed like a good way to get some fresh air." "Plot twist," she teased. "The guy with the neat paint lines is secretly an office warrior. I'll have you know I'm very versatile," he said, making her laugh again. Serena wiped a streak of aqua paint from her arm, sighing. "I come to these builds a lot. Something about helping piece a home together just feels right." He looked at her with genuine interest. "You volunteer often?" "Yep," she said. "My family raised me on do good, be good. Plus, building houses is cheaper than therapy." He grinned. I knew I liked this place already. As they worked, their easy conversation continued. She told him she was a children's librarian. He told her he worked in business, nothing more, his usual way of staying low-key. They teased each other about Atlanta traffic, argued playfully about which side of Atlanta had the best food, and laughed at the way paint kept getting everywhere except where they wanted it. By the time lunch rolled around, they had painted the entire living room together. Outside, volunteers gathered under a tent where church ladies had set out sandwiches, chips, and sweet tea. Serena and Michiel sat together on the porch steps of the half-finished house, unwrapping their sandwiches. "So, librarian?" he asked between bites. "That sounds like a peaceful job." "It is," she said. Kids give me life, even the loud ones. What about the adults? Sometimes I think they're worse than the kids," she joked. "But somebody's got to help them find the right books." He laughed. "You seem really passionate about it." "I love stories," Serena said simply, "and helping kids find themselves in books? That's magic." Mikhail nodded, watching her in quiet admiration. He could sense how much heart she carried. "What about you?" she asked. "What kind of business are you in?" He cleared his throat lightly. "Tech." "Oh," she said dramatically. "So you're the reason our data privacy warnings keep getting longer?" He laughed. "Guilty." Their knees brushed slightly as they shifted on the steps. The contact was small but charged. Both of them felt it. She looked down to wipe a crumb off her dress and left a streak of teal paint on her cheek. Mikhail noticed. "You've got a little, he gestured to his own cheek. Serena rolled her eyes. "Of course I do. Where?" Mikhail reached gently with a corner of his napkin. "Right, hang on." As he wiped the paint away, his fingers brushed her skin. They froze, their eyes met. Something flickered between them, something soft, curious, and electric. Serena swallowed. Mikhail lowered his hand slowly. "You're good at this," she murmured. "I try," he said, voice warm. Their moment stretched long enough for the wind to shift. Then Serena forced herself to break the tension. "Don't let this go to your head. I still painted better lines." "Oh, please," he scoffed playfully. "My lines were crisp." "They were okay," she teased. "You wound me. You'll live." They laughed again, light, easy, free. As the day closed, the coordinators thanked the volunteers and dismissed everyone early. Some left immediately, but Serena lingered, her heart unexpectedly full. Mikhail hesitated beside her, shifting his weight. "Serena," he said. She turned to him. "Yeah, I really enjoyed today. A lot." He rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly looking boyishly shy. "Would you want to grab coffee sometime?" She pretended to think, tapping her chin. "Depends. Will you judge me if I order the biggest pastry on the menu?" "Never," he said with a smile. Then she said, "Yes." She typed her number into his phone. He saved it as Serena, Paint Buddy, which made her laugh again. As she walked back to her car, Serena glanced over her shoulder. Mikhail was still standing there, watching her go with an expression he didn't bother hiding now. Interest, warmth, hope. She waved, he waved back, and just like that, two lives that had existed in the same city without touching finally collided, quietly, beautifully, and without warning. Nothing dramatic, nothing forced. Just one afternoon, one paint roller, one unexpected spark. By the time the sun dipped behind the trees, everything had shifted. Forever. Sunday mornings always carried their own rhythm in Atlanta, especially in the old Fourth Ward where Serena's church sat like a steady anchor in the middle of city movement. The building wasn't huge, but it stood proudly with its red brick exterior, stained glass windows, and a history that stretched back to times when the neighborhood relied on faith to survive everything else. This particular Sunday, Serena felt a flutter in her chest, not nerves, not fear, but something softer as she held Mikhail's hand while they walked toward the entrance. This was the first time he would step fully into her world. It mattered deeply. Mikhail tightened his grip gently. "You okay?" he asked quietly, his voice warm even as he scanned the crowd gathering outside the church. Serena smiled. "I'm good. They're going to love you. Or at least, they're going to try." He chuckled under his breath. "Trying is a good start." As they reached the door, Serena saw familiar faces. Sister Matthews waved. Mr. Johnson tipped his hat. Two of the choir ladies whispered to each other before giving Serena big smiles. But the moment they saw Mikhail beside her, the whispering grew a little louder. "Not rude, just curious." Serena leaned toward him. "Don't worry, they just notice things, like me being the only one who looks like I wandered in by accident," he murmured with a grin. She nudged him playfully. "You'll be fine." Inside, the sanctuary buzzed with the warm chatter of a congregation that had spent decades praying, laughing, and grieving side by side. The choir filed in wearing deep blue robes, their voices humming softly during warm-up. The organist played a gentle transition piece. Mikhail looked around, taking in the vibrant energy. This wasn't the quiet, politely restrained worship he grew up with. This was alive, hands raised, people greeting each other loudly, hugs at every aisle. Serena saw her father, Pastor Otis, near the front. The moment he spotted her and McKeel, his eyebrows rose, not in disapproval but in recognition of the significance of this morning. "Daddy," Serena said softly when they reached him. Pastor Otis extended a firm hand toward McKeel. "Son, welcome." McKeel met his eyes and shook the offered hand. It wasn't an aggressive grip, but it wasn't soft either. It was a test, a silent question. "Who are you to my daughter?" McKeel held steady. "Happy to be here, sir." "Good," Otis replied, nodding once. "We're glad to have you," Serena breathed out, relieved. As the service began, the choir lifted their voices in a familiar gospel tune that filled every inch of the sanctuary. The drummer tapped a rhythm that seemed to make the pews vibrate. McKeel sat beside Serena, watching in wonder as people swayed, clapped, and sang with a joy that didn't need permission. At one point, Serena leaned closer. "You okay?" He nodded, mesmerized. "This is incredible." She smiled proudly. "Told you." Pastor Otis preached a message about love without boundaries, compassion beyond comfort, and building bridges where walls once stood. At several points, McKeel felt as if he was being spoken to directly, not chastised, but challenged to think differently. During one powerful moment, the choir broke into a harmony so rich that McKeel felt his chest tighten. Serena closed her eyes, letting the music roll through her. When she opened them again, she caught McKeel looking at her, not at the choir, not at the pastor, but at her, with a softness that made her feel warm all the way to her fingertips. After service, the fellowship hall filled quickly. Long tables were covered with foil pans of food, mac and cheese, fried chicken, cornbread, string beans, peach cobbler. Children darted between adults, and older members found seats near the wall. Serena and McKeel barely stepped inside before Grandma Edna swooped toward them. "Well, look at you," she said, eyeing McKeel from head to toe. "You're taller in person, young man." "Serena doesn't exaggerate," Serena groaned. "Grandma, please." Edna ignored her. "What's your favorite scripture?" she asked McKeel abruptly. McKeel blinked. I'd say I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear." Edna paused. "King, not Bible." "I know," he replied, "but I think about it more than any verse." Edna cracked a smile. That'll do." Two of Serena's cousins walked past, whispering just loud enough. "He cute, girl. He nervous too. Look at him holding that plate like it's fragile." McKeel pretended not to hear, but nearly dropped the spoon he was holding, which made Serena laugh so hard she bent over. When they finally sat down to eat, Serena watched McKeel try everything with genuine interest. But then came the moment she didn't see coming. "Be careful with the gumbo," her mother called from across the table. "I put a little extra kick in it today." McKeel took a bite, a big bite, a confident bite. "Are you?" Serena asked. He held up a finger, then reached desperately for his drink. The table erupted into full laughter as he fanned his mouth. "Water," he gasped. "Water won't help," Edna said, shaking her head. "Eat bread." Serena grabbed him a roll, still laughing. When he finally recovered, he slumped back dramatically. "I think I just met my match, and it wasn't the pepper, it was your whole family." Cassandra leaned over with a hand on her hip. "You did good, McKeel. Most men tap out before the second bite." He smiled sheepishly. "Glad I survived the initiation." Later, when everyone was cleaning up, Serena overheard her mother speaking softly to her father in the kitchen. "He's a keeper," Cassandra whispered. "The way he looks at her. And he ate that gumbo without complaining." Serena tried not to blush as she stepped back into the hallway. When she walked outside with McKeel later, the sun dipping low behind the houses, she felt light, hopeful in a way she hadn't allowed herself to feel before. "I like your family," McKeel said as they reached her car. "They're honest, and loud, and funny, and warm." "They're definitely loud," Serena teased. "But I mean it," he said seriously. "They made me feel welcome." Serena exhaled. "They like you. Even your dad?" McKeel asked cautiously. "Even Daddy," she said, squeezing his hand. "He just needed to see you." They stood there for a moment, soaking in the quiet neighborhood sounds. Kids playing down the block, someone blasting R&B from a porch, birds settling into the trees. Serena looked at him, her heart full. "For the first time, I feel like Our worlds might actually fit. Mikhail brushed a loose braid from her forehead. I want them to fit. All of them. Your world, my world, everything. Serena leaned into him, letting herself believe it. For now, this moment felt perfect. She didn't know yet that the real test would come when she stepped into his world next, where warm smiles were rare, acceptance was conditional, and love would have to fight much harder to be seen. Serena stood in front of her mirror late Friday afternoon, smoothing the fabric of her soft blue dress with hands that refused to stop trembling. It wasn't nerves over the dress, it was where she was going. Tonight, she would step through the Bradford estate doors and into the world that shaped Mikhail, a world that had rarely welcomed outsiders, especially those who looked like her. She adjusted her curls gently, took a steady breath, and reminded herself of what she already knew. Mikhail loved her. He chose her. He was proud of her. Those facts mattered more than anything waiting on the other side of those large iron gates. Still, she couldn't quite shake the tightness at the base of her throat. When her phone vibrated, she looked down and saw Mikhail's message. Mikhail, I'm outside. Take your time. No rush. His thoughtfulness softened the tension building inside her chest. She slipped into a small pair of earrings her mother bought for her last Christmas and headed out. Mikhail stepped out of his sleek car when she walked toward him, his face brightening instantly. You okay? He asked, opening the passenger door. I will be, she answered honestly. You clean up well, though. He grinned. Had to. My parents think anything under a suit jacket is casual. That tracks, she said dryly, making him laugh. As they drove through Atlanta's evening traffic, Serena looked out the window, thinking. She wasn't afraid of meeting his family. She had already survived the warmth of her own with him. But there was a difference between scrutiny wrapped in love and scrutiny wrapped in silence. Mikhail reached over and took her hand. You know you don't have to impress anyone tonight, right? I know, she said softly, but I want to make it easier for you. He shook his head. You make everything easier just by being you. She squeezed his fingers. Okay, then let's go. The Bradford house appeared slowly through rows of trees and trimmed hedges, revealing itself like something pulled from an expensive home magazine. A circular driveway wrapped around a large fountain. White columns lined the entrance. Windows glowed with warm yellow light. Serena forced herself not to shrink. She had grown up with love, not marble. Ready? Mikhail asked. Let's do it, she whispered. He helped her out of the car and placed his hand at the small of her back. Inside the foyer, the smell of fresh flowers mixed with expensive perfume. A grand chandelier hung above, reflecting off polished floors. Everything was pristine, silent, controlled. Feet tapped on hardwood. Evelyn Bradford appeared first, tall, elegant, posture straight as a ruler. Her pale pink dress was perfectly fitted, her pearl necklace gleaming. Good evening, Evelyn greeted with a tight smile. Serena, welcome. Serena forced a warm expression. Thank you for having me. William Bradford stepped out next, hands tucked into his pockets. Mikhail, he said, nodding to his son before turning to Serena. Nice to meet you. His tone was polite, too polite, polished like a formal handshake, offering no warmth beyond civility. Mikhail leaned slightly toward Serena. It was subtle, but she felt a protective presence. Dinner is ready, Evelyn said, gesturing toward the dining room with a graceful sweep of her hand. Serena stepped forward. She could feel the weight of their gaze as she walked. The Bradford dining room looked like something reserved for holidays or magazine spreads. An enormous table, tall-backed chairs, silver candlesticks, and a centerpiece made of fresh lilies. Serena took her seat beside Mikhail. Across from her sat Evelyn and William, each composed like they were posing for a portrait. Serena, William began. Mikhail tells us you're a librarian. Yes, Serena said with a smile. I work in children's services. It's rewarding. Evelyn tilted her head slightly, lips curving only at the corners. How community-focused. Serena recognized the tone. She had heard it before, from people who thought community meant small. She responded calmly. It's important work. I'm sure it is, Evelyn said, her eyes flicking toward her husband. The house staff brought plates, some dish with citrus glaze and vegetables placed so neatly it looked like art. Serena thanked the server with a warm smile. Evelyn noticed that too. So, Evelyn said casually, one of the young women we know just got engaged. Lovely girl from a family in Savannah. A very well-matched couple. Their parents are thrilled. Michiel paused mid-cut of his food. Serena understood the message immediately. It wasn't subtle. Michiel's voice cut through the table's quiet air. That's wonderful for them, Mother. But Serena and I are very happy. There was a beat of silence. William tried a different approach. Tell us more about your aspirations, Serena. Do you plan to stay in your current role long-term? Serena kept her tone steady. Yes, I'm working toward a graduate program in archival studies, focusing on African American history. I'd like to help preserve stories from communities that shaped this city. William nodded once, ambitious, but not approving, just acknowledging. Michiel rested his hand on Serena's knee under the table. Supportive, steady. Dinner continued, but the conversation felt like navigating invisible tripwires. Every question from his parents seemed designed to reveal what Serena wasn't, instead of who she was. When the plates were cleared, Evelyn folded her cloth napkin with precision. It was lovely having you over, Serena. We must do this again sometime. Serena smiled graciously. Thank you for the invitation. But behind the politeness lay truth. She had been judged, quietly, thoroughly, without mercy. The following weekend, Michiel brought Serena to a black-tie charity gala, an event attended by many of the same people who had shaped his childhood world. Serena stepped out of the car in a deep emerald gown that made her skin glow under the event lights. Michiel offered his arm. You look stunning, he murmured. Thank you, Serena replied. You're not so bad yourself. But her confidence wavered when they entered the ballroom. Eyes turned, whispers followed. Serena wasn't new to attention, but this wasn't admiration, this was evaluation, comparison. Curiosity sharpened into something else entirely. A man approached Michiel, someone older, with a smug half-smile and a drink in hand. Well, well, the man said. Didn't know you were into adventure, Michiel. Michiel's jaw tensed instantly. What I'm into, he said flatly, is intelligent, kind people. Serena is both. The man blinked, startled. Of course, he said quickly before excusing himself. Serena swallowed hard. It's fine, she whispered. Really, it's not fine, Michiel said quietly. Not even close. They found their table. Serena watched as elegantly dressed guests glanced her way and then turned quickly, whispering behind manicured fingertips. She could feel the weight of every sideways look. At one point, the server placed 3 forks beside her plate. Serena stared at them, completely lost. Michiel leaned in, whispering with a small smile. Start from the outside and work your way in. She let out a tiny laugh. Good. I was about to eat with a dessert fork. That's still better than what half this room deserves, he murmured, making her giggle despite everything. Still. The discomfort lingered. Every time she lifted her head, she caught someone watching. When the gala band shifted into a slow tune, Michiel asked her to dance. She placed her hand in his and let him lead her onto the dance floor. For a moment, wrapped in his arms, she forgot the room entirely. You holding up? He asked as they swayed gently. Mostly, she admitted. Just wish the staring would stop. I'm sorry, he whispered. You deserve better. It's not your fault. He brushed his thumb over her wrist. I'm still sorry. When the song ended and they returned to their seats, Serena watched him from the corner of her eye. He was polite to everyone, respectful, but each time someone made a comment, direct or subtle, his expression tightened just a little more. Later that night, when they were finally in the car heading home, Michiel exhaled a long breath, gripping the steering wheel. I'm done pretending they just don't know better, he said quietly. They know exactly what they're doing. Serena touched his arm. Michiel. No, he said firmly. You shouldn't be treated like that. Not by strangers, not by my parents, not by anyone. He looked over at her, pain and determination battling in his eyes. I'm going to talk to them. Michiel. I have to, he insisted. You matter too much to me. Serena fell silent. She believed him. But she also knew this conversation would not end easily. The next week, Michiel confronted his parents, this time without holding back. Serena wasn't present for the argument, but she could imagine it from the way Mikhail recounted it later, pacing her living room with anger simmering beneath his voice. "Mother said I was being dramatic," Mikhail said, voice tight. "My father said I was misinterpreting comments from people who were just curious. And when I asked them why Serena couldn't receive basic respect, they gave me silence." Serena sat on the couch, hands folded tightly in her lap. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't apologize," he said sharply. "You didn't do anything wrong." She knew that. She also knew how much Mikhail loved his parents despite everything, and now she was tugging him further from them every time the subject came up. "Do you want to take a break from everything?" he asked suddenly. "From galas, dinners, all of it? We can just be normal for a while." She looked at him with soft eyes. "I want whatever brings you peace. You've been carrying all of this alone for years. I don't want to make your life harder." His expression softened. "You don't make it harder. You make it real." But Serena could feel something shifting, a fine line beginning to stretch. Love had brought them this far, but legacy, family, expectations were pushing back harder. And as Mikhail wrapped his arms around her and buried his face in her shoulder, she felt the first faint tremble of fear that maybe, just maybe, the world he came from might not leave them in peace. Not yet. Not willingly. Not without a fight. Serena woke up on a quiet Wednesday morning with sunlight slipping through her curtains in thin golden stripes. She should have felt rested. She had slept a full 8 hours, but her mind carried a lingering heaviness from the tension Mikhail described after confronting his parents. It wasn't her fault. She knew that. But she also knew love didn't erase reality. Reality had sharp edges. Still, today she had plans with Mikhail, plans that mattered. He had asked to talk, really talk, about everything he'd been holding inside, and Serena, with all her love for him, was ready to listen. She got dressed in a soft sweater and jeans, tied her braids back loosely, and headed out. Mikhail picked her up before noon, wearing a navy sweater and jeans, comfort clothes, not billionaire clothes. He always dressed down around her, not to hide anything, but because he could breathe more easily that way. They drove quietly to Piedmont Park, a place that felt like neutral ground, neither his world nor hers, but the city's peaceful center. Couples walked by holding hands, families pushed strollers, joggers passed with earbuds in. Life around them moved gently. They found a quiet bench overlooking the lake. Mikhail sat down first, elbows on his knees, staring ahead as if gathering courage. Serena touched his arm. "Whatever it is, you can tell me." He nodded. "I should have told you more, from the beginning," he said quietly. "Not because I wanted to hide anything from you, but because people change when they know what I have. I've seen it happen too many times." Serena nodded slowly. "I get that, but it went on longer than it should have," he continued, voice thick with regret. "You deserve to know the full truth sooner." He finally turned to her. "My net worth isn't just high," he said, choosing his words carefully. It's much higher than I made it sound. I'm not just comfortable, Serena. I'm wealthy to a level most people don't encounter. My company grew faster than anyone predicted, and I realized I was falling for you long before you even knew what I did for a living." Serena held his gaze, steady and open. "So when you kept it vague," she said gently, "it was more about protection than secrecy?" He nodded. "I wanted to be seen as Mikhail, the man, not the money. I always saw you as Mikhail," she said softly, "the guy who painted walls with me, the guy who sings off-key, the guy who tries too hard to pretend he likes spicy food." He let out a breathy, grateful laugh, but then she cupped his cheek with a tenderness that broke through his defenses. "I don't love your money," she whispered. "I love your mind, your heart, your kindness, your flaws. If you were broke tomorrow, I'd still love you." His eyes softened with a kind of relief she hadn't seen before. "Thank you," he murmured. "I needed to hear that more than you know." He leaned his forehead against hers for a moment, just breathing, grounding himself in her presence. Then Serena pulled back slightly, smiling. "So, how rich are you exactly?" He laughed fully this time, shaking his head. "I'll show you a spreadsheet later." "Please don't," she groaned jokingly. "I want romance, not accounting." "Deal." For a blissful moment, they were just two people on a park bench, believing love could outshout the world. But the world was already moving, quietly, calculatingly, and one person in particular had already set her plan into motion. 2 days later, Serena sat behind the reference desk at the library. The afternoon had been calm, children coloring quietly, teens browsing the graphic novel section, a few older patrons asking about book recommendations. She had just finished helping a mother find books for her toddler when she noticed a woman walking toward her across the library floor. Elegant dress, perfect posture, a pearl bracelet catching the light. Evelyn Bradford. Serena's breath caught, but she kept her face composed. "Hello, Serena," Evelyn said softly, lips pulled into that same thin smile she wore during dinner. "Mrs. Bradford," Serena replied, equally soft. "Can I help you find something? I'm hoping we can talk privately," Evelyn said. "Somewhere we won't disturb anyone." Serena's heart pulsed uncomfortably, but she stood. "There's a reading room down the hall." They walked in silence. Serena closed the door behind them. The room smelled of old books and quiet afternoons. Evelyn set her purse neatly on the table and cleared her throat. "I'll speak plainly," she began. Serena braced herself. "My son is infatuated with you," Evelyn continued. "That much is obvious. You have his attention, and clearly you're a charming young woman." Serena stiffened slightly at the patronizing tone. "But," Evelyn said, eyes cooling, "that attention is coming at a cost." Serena's jaw tightened. "Cost to who?" "To him," Evelyn answered without hesitation. "To our family, to the expectations he carries, the legacy he is responsible for preserving. You complicate that." Serena swallowed slowly. "With respect," she said carefully, "your son and I are grown adults. We can manage our lives." "Perhaps," Evelyn replied, "but there are realities you may not fully understand." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope, white, thick, sealed. Serena stared at it. Evelyn slid it across the table. "I'm offering you an opportunity," she said. "A chance to pursue your future without being weighed down by a life you're not suited for. You are bright, capable. You could study anywhere, work anywhere, build a life on your own terms." Serena's throat felt tight. "What is that?" "A check," Evelyn said softly. "Enough to get you started wherever you choose. Enough to make walking away easier." Serena felt heat rise through her chest, not embarrassment. Anger. Deep, controlled anger. She placed her hands on the table slowly. "So let me be clear," Serena said quietly. "You came into my workplace. You sat in my space. And you brought me money to disappear?" Evelyn's expression didn't flicker. "I'm offering you freedom from a situation that will end badly. For everyone, including you." Serena pushed the envelope back across the table. "I'm not for sale." For the first time, something shifted in Evelyn's eyes. Surprise, maybe even discomfort, but it was gone as quickly as it came. "You're making a mistake," Evelyn murmured. "No," Serena said steadily. "The mistake is thinking I'd ever take money to give up someone I love." Evelyn slowly stood. "Consider this my attempt to spare you both unnecessary pain." Serena kept her gaze firm. "Goodbye, Mrs. Bradford." Evelyn picked up her purse and walked to the door. Before she left, she turned slightly. "Love is not enough in his world," she said softly, and then she was gone. Serena's knees nearly buckled when the door clicked shut. She sank into a chair, trembling with adrenaline, fury, and heartbreak all tangled together. She stayed there several minutes before she could breathe again. Then she reached for her phone. She needed to tell Michiel. That evening, Michiel rushed to her apartment the moment she texted, knocking hard enough that Serena hurried to open the door. He stepped inside, saw her red-rimmed eyes, and froze. "Serena, what happened?" She took a breath, steady but shaking. "Your mother came to my job." His face went pale. "She what?" Serena retold everything, every word, every gesture, every insult wrapped in politeness. Michiel's expression darkened with each detail until he finally stood and ran a hand through his hair, pacing the room with heavy steps. "I can't believe her," he snapped. "I can't believe she would." "She brought a check." "Michiel." He stopped mid-step. "She tried to pay me to leave you." His fists clenched, his jaw tightened until a muscle twitched. I'm going over there, Michiel. No, he said sharply, voice shaking. She crossed a line. She crossed every line. He reached for his coat. Serena grabbed his arm firmly. Please don't go over there angry, not like this. He looked at her, eyes blazing with fury and hurt. She tried to buy you off. She treated you like you were nothing, and she walked into your job to do it. Serena, that's unforgivable. Serena swallowed hard. I know, but I don't want you doing something you regret. His anger shifted into something softer, sadder. I'm so sorry, he said, stepping toward her. I'm sorry you had to go through that alone. I'm sorry she did that to you. I'm sorry my family keeps hurting you. Serena dropped her gaze. It's not your fault. But when he reached for her hand, she hesitated, not pulling away, but not reaching forward either. That hesitation pierced him deeper than anything his mother had said. Serena, he whispered, talk to me. She finally met his eyes. I love you, Michiel, more than I ever expected to love anyone. But I'm tired. His heart clenched. Tired of being tested, judged, pushed aside. Tired of people thinking I'm not good enough. And now your mother. She exhaled shakily. I know you choose me. I know you mean it, but I can't be the reason you lose your family. You're not, he insisted. They're choosing to push themselves away. But it still hurts you, she whispered. I see it, and it hurts me too. He stepped closer, voice breaking. I can fix this. She swallowed. Not everything can be fixed with willpower. His breath caught, and then she said the sentence that lodged itself deep in both of their hearts. I can't be the reason you lose your family, Michiel. The room fell unbearably quiet. He reached for her again, but she shook her head gently, lovingly, painfully. A thin, aching silence stretched between them, but it was the moment the ground beneath their relationship shifted, subtly, silently, dangerously, toward something neither of them wanted. But both of them feared. Serena spent the next several days in a strange, aching quiet. Her heart was still wrapped tightly in love for Michiel, but the edges of everything hurt. The shame of Evelyn's visit, the pressure, the exhaustion of constantly being evaluated, judged, whispered about, and worst of all, the look on Michiel's face when she said she couldn't be the reason he lost his family. That expression haunted her. It wasn't anger, it was devastation, and she carried that weight everywhere she went. At the library, she smiled through story time. She shelved books, helped students, laughed with co-workers, but every time she was alone at the desk, her mind drifted back to him. Meanwhile, Michiel was unraveling quietly. He worked long hours, pushing himself harder than he ever had, partly to drown out the hurt and partly to keep from losing control. His parents' betrayal cut deep, but Serena's pain cut deeper. He couldn't accept a world where she didn't feel safe or valued beside him. He needed to fix it. He needed to prove something, not to his parents, but to her. He needed to show her she wasn't a burden or a risk or a complication. She was the woman he wanted to build everything with, so he made a plan, a real plan. One that involved a ring. Michiel spent an entire afternoon preparing something he hoped would erase months of pain. He rented a small cabin in North Georgia, the kind perched on a hill with a wide porch and a view of distant mountains. A place where the world felt simple again, where it was just them, no voices, no judgments, no history weighing on their shoulders. He filled the fridge with Serena's favorite foods, bought a bouquet of wildflowers, placed a blanket near the fireplace. He even left a new copy of her favorite childhood book on the couch with a sticky note. For all the stories we'll write together, he wanted a clean slate. And in a small velvet box in his pocket sat the ring he had chosen. Simple, elegant, meaningful. Not loud or flashy. Something Serena would love. Something that symbolized everything he felt, but had struggled to put into words. He planned to pick her up at 7, but life, his world, didn't care about plans. At 6:30, his phone buzzed with an urgent alert. One of the company's servers had crashed under unexpected traffic load, threatening millions of users. It wasn't something he could delegate. Investors were already calling. Engineers were scrambling. The crisis pulled him into a vortex he couldn't escape. He tried to send Serena a message. Michiel, running slightly behind. Don't come yet. I'll pick you up. But in all the chaos, the message never delivered. And while he was troubleshooting, A critical system failure, with tense executives hovering over his shoulder. Serena was slipping into a dress and calling a rideshare to his penthouse. She thought he was waiting. She had no idea he was drowning in work. When Serena stepped out of the elevator into his penthouse hallway, she felt a flutter of excitement, something she hadn't felt in days. She had almost canceled the trip, afraid of making things worse, but a small voice inside told her to try. Fight for this, it whispered. Fight with him, not against him. She inhaled deeply, lifted her hand, and knocked. No answer. She knocked again. Still nothing. Her heart sank a little, but then she heard voices, faint but growing louder from inside. It wasn't locked. The moment the door opened, the voices sharpened clearly. Not Mikhail's soft frustration, not Serena's own voice. It was Mikhail and Priscilla. Standing in the living room. Serena froze at the doorway, hidden from their view. "Mikhail, you're being ridiculous," Priscilla snapped, arms crossed over her chest. "You're throwing away your reputation over someone who doesn't fit this life." Mikhail's voice was sharp. "Don't talk about her like that," Priscilla scoffed. "Why not? Everyone else is." She stepped closer. "You're meant to be with someone who understands your world, someone from your circle, someone who makes sense. You don't get to say who makes sense for me." "Oh, please," Priscilla said, rolling her eyes. "You're spiraling. Everyone sees it. Your mother is worried sick. Your father is furious. The board is nervous." "Enough," he said coldly. "Get out." Priscilla didn't flinch. She stepped even closer. "I'm the one who actually cares about your reputation," she hissed. "I'm the one who has always been there. Look at yourself, Mikhail. Look at what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing," he replied. "And I don't need you to tell me who I should love. You're embarrassing yourself. Leave, Priscilla." Priscilla glared at him, hard, bitter, jealous. "You're meant to be with me," she said quietly, a cruel softness beneath the words. "Everyone knows it. Everyone but you." Serena didn't mean to move. Her shoe just scraped against the hardwood floor. Priscilla snapped her head toward the doorway. Mikhail turned too, eyes widening the instant he saw Serena standing there, dress still perfect, expression shattered. "Oh God," he whispered. "Serena." Priscilla smirked faintly, as if satisfied with the damage. But Serena didn't look at her. She stared at Mikhail, hurt, exhaustion, betrayal, heartbreak all mixing behind her eyes. "I shouldn't have come," she said softly. No, wait," Mikhail said, stepping forward. "This isn't what it looks like. She just showed up, and we were arguing because—" "I heard what she said," Serena whispered. "And the truth is, I'm tired, Mikhail." His chest tightened. I know you are, but I'm tired of fighting your whole world," she said, voice cracking. "I'm tired of walking into rooms where I'm not wanted. I'm tired of feeling like a problem. I'm tired of being tested." "Serena, please," he said desperately. "Don't say that. Don't." She shook her head, tears gathering. "I love you," she whispered. "But loving you shouldn't feel like war every day." Mikhail stepped closer, reaching into his pocket slowly, carefully. "Then let me fix it," he said, pulling something small and velvet blue from his jacket. Mikhail, on the hardwood floor, in front of Priscilla, in front of heartbreak, in front of everything that had gone wrong. He opened the box with trembling fingers, revealing the ring he had chosen for her. "This isn't how I planned it," he whispered, voice cracking. "But I love you. I want you. I choose you. Every day. Always. Serena, marry me." Serena's stomach twisted painfully. Not because she didn't love him, not because she didn't want him, but because this moment was wrong. She backed away slowly. "No," she whispered, tears spilling. "Not like this." Mikhail's eyes broke, completely broke. "Serena." "I can't," she said, voice trembling. "I can't say yes while everything around us is falling apart. I can't say yes in front of someone who hates me. I can't say yes while you're drowning." He stood up too fast, desperate. "We can fix it. Together. Please. Don't go." But the heartbreak hanging between them was too thick, too heavy. Serena stepped back toward the door. Her final words pierced the air like truth wrapped in sorrow. "I'm leaving, Mikhail. Please don't," he whispered. She turned around, one step then another and another, tears falling down her cheeks as she walked down the long hallway. Priscilla watched silently, arms folded, a satisfied glint in her eyes. Mikhail didn't look at Priscilla. He didn't look at anything. He sank onto the floor, ring still in his hand, staring at the open doorway where Serena had disappeared. Heart splitting, hope collapsing, future fading. For the first time since meeting her, Mikhail felt truly alone, and Serena, stepping into the elevator, felt something inside her break so deeply she wasn't sure it could ever be repaired. The first separation had begun, and neither of them knew what the world had planned next. The air in Atlanta felt heavier in the weeks after Serena walked out of Mikhail's penthouse. Not because of weather, because of absence, because two people who once breathed in sync were now living in different emotional worlds, both hurting, both pretending, both unraveling quietly in their separate corners of the city. Mikhail had never known silence could be this loud. His penthouse, once filled with Serena's laughter, her voice reading aloud parts of a book she found funny, her soft music playing while she cooked, now echoed every step he took. He kept replaying that moment in the hallway, his ring trembling in his hands, her walking away. He told himself he would call her. He told himself he would drive to her apartment. He told himself he would fix it. But each time he reached for his phone, guilt weighed down his hand. He had planned a trip to propose. He had planned a future. He had planned to make everything right. And then she walked in on him shouting at Priscilla, the last thing Serena needed after weeks of fighting his entire world. Mikhail knew Serena didn't misunderstand anything. She saw exactly what she feared, the toxic pressure pressing in on him from all sides, pushing them apart. So the days turned into weeks, the weeks into months. He buried himself in work, staying at the office past midnight, falling asleep on the couch in the conference room some nights. His assistant noticed the change. Employees whispered about how the CEO who used to walk tall now kept his eyes down. At home, he barely ate, barely slept. His parents called, not out of concern but out of frustration. "Evelyn, this moody behavior isn't professional. Mikhail. William, you need to focus on priorities. There will be other women." Mikhail hung up more than once without speaking. He wasn't angry. He was numb. Serena grieved differently, deeply. She switched library branches after a few weeks because every aisle reminded her of moments with Mikhail. The way he'd pop in unexpectedly during lunch breaks. The way he'd sit quietly in a chair, watching her help children choose books. The way he'd wait after her shift with warm tea in his hands. She found a new branch on the east side, where the staff didn't know her history and the walls didn't carry memories. She threw herself into work, reading programs, teen tutoring, organizing shelves, but her coworkers still noticed the sadness behind her smile. Her mother saw her pain instantly. Cassandra would sit beside her on the couch at night, rubbing her back like she did when Serena was a child. "You don't have to pretend with me," she whispered more than once. Her father prayed for her silently in the mornings, his hands resting gently on her shoulders. Grandma Edna visited often, bringing peach cobbler Serena barely touched. "You hurting," Edna finally said one afternoon. "I can see it in your eyes. Pain got a way of showing up on your face, even when your mouth stays quiet." Serena broke down crying in her grandmother's arms. "I just loved him so much, Grandma." "I know, baby," Edna said, rocking her gently. "Love don't always get a straight path." Serena whispered, "It hurts." Edna kissed her forehead. That means it was real. 3 months passed before Serena saw Mikhail again. It happened unexpectedly, at a community fundraiser where her library branch was receiving a donation for new children's books. Mikhail had quietly sponsored the event, not knowing she'd be there. When their eyes met across the room, everything inside both of them shifted. Serena felt her breath catch. Mikhail felt his heart jump painfully. He approached her slowly, unsure if he should smile or apologize, or simply collapse into her arms. "Serena," he said softly. She nodded, eyes already glossing over. "Hey." They stood in the middle of the bustling event, surrounded by people they couldn't hear. Neither moved. "Can we talk?" he asked. She hesitated, because she didn't trust herself around him, but she nodded. They stepped outside to a quiet corner of the lot. "I'm sorry," Mikhail said immediately, voice breaking, "for everything, for that night, for letting people push me to a breaking point, for making you feel like you were in this alone." Serena swallowed. I'm sorry too. I shouldn't have walked away without giving us time to breathe. I love you, he said almost desperately. I always have, and I don't want to lose you. Tears stung her eyes. I love you too. Those words, so simple, so heavy, pulled them into a slow, painful embrace. They clung to each other. Two people still broken, two hearts still bruised, two souls still in love. But love alone wasn't enough to steady them. Not yet. Word of their interaction spread faster than either expected. Evelyn overheard from one of her friends, with outrage. Within days, both families inserted themselves into the situation. Serena's family said, "Don't let that boy ruin your chance at a future. You deserve someone who doesn't come with storms." Mikhail's family said, "You can't drag our name through more gossip. It's better to make something official and quiet the rumors." The pressure mounted from both directions. Calls, meetings, family discussions. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone wanted control. Serena and Mikhail were exhausted. Eventually, the pressure twisted into a single message from both sides: make it official or end it for good. And because they were still hurting, still tender, still scared, they confused pressure with practicality. They confused fear with urgency. They confused pain with clarity. So they made a choice neither was ready for. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. No ceremony, no flowers, no celebration. Just a courthouse in downtown Atlanta, a clerk, two witnesses from staff, and two people who wanted to stop the world from tearing them apart. Serena wore a soft white dress she bought the night before. Simple, knee-length, nothing fancy. Mikhail wore a navy suit, hair slightly messy, eyes exhausted from sleepless nights. They held hands in a small room with pale walls and fluorescent lights. "Do you take?" "Yes," Mikhail said before the clerk could finish. "Do you take?" "I do," Serena whispered. Their kiss was soft, shaky, not because they didn't love each other, but because they both felt the truth pressing around them. They weren't ready, but they were trying. God, they were trying. After the papers were signed, Mikhail kissed her forehead and held her tightly. "We'll make this work," he whispered. She nodded, clinging to belief even as her heart trembled. The honeymoon phase never came. Serena and Mikhail fought more than they talked, not screaming fights, worse than that. Long pauses after sentences that used to spark laughter. Small misunderstandings, who forgot to return a call, who canceled dinner plans, who didn't communicate, turned into long nights of emotional distance. One evening, Priscilla intercepted Serena in the foyer of the Bradford estate during a charity dinner. "You look stressed," she said coolly. "Marriage already weighing you down?" Serena stepped away before she said something she'd regret. Meanwhile, Mikhail heard rumors at work. "That librarian married him fast, didn't she? Convenient timing. I heard she pushed for it. She just wants the lifestyle." Even when Mikhail denied every rumor, the damage slowly crept into his thinking. Pride mixed with exhaustion made him defensive. He felt judged by the world, cornered by expectations, pulled in every direction. And Serena, tired of always defending, always explaining, always holding the emotional weight, began shutting down. The marriage wasn't built on joy. It was built on fear, guilt, pressure, and the desperate desire to prove they were strong enough to survive the storm. Storms don't care about intentions. Storms blow, and blow, and blow, until something breaks. It happened late at night, after weeks of tension, unanswered messages, and silent dinners. Serena had found texts from Priscilla sent earlier that day. "Still here if you get tired of babysitting. You know this isn't the life you were born for." Serena confronted him, not harshly, not dramatically, just tired. "Mikhail, why is she still contacting you? Why is she still around us?" She walked away for real this time, heart shattered, trust ruined, love battered beyond recognition. Mikhail found the ring on the counter when he got home. He sank to the floor, clutching it in his hand, and for the first time in years, he cried until his chest hurt. By the time the divorce was finalized, they were no longer speaking, and neither knew what the other was truly going through, but they were about to be connected again. More deeply, more permanently, more painfully than either of them could imagine. The papers were signed. The marriage was over. 2 signatures on a document had severed what once felt unbreakable. But life, the real, unpredictable kind, was far from finished with Serena and Mikhail. 2 weeks after Serena finalized the divorce, She woke up feeling unusually dizzy. At first, she assumed it was stress. She'd cried nearly every night since she left McKeel's penthouse for the last time. Her mother knocked gently on the door. "Rena, you okay in there?" Serena washed her face, trying to hide how hollow she felt. "I'm fine, Mama," but she wasn't. That morning, while shelving books at the library, Serena suddenly had to sit down. Her manager rushed over, concerned. "I'm okay," Serena insisted, "just lightheaded." But deep down, she knew the truth she'd been trying not to consider. She bought a test on her way home, hands trembling as she walked back into her apartment. She placed it on the bathroom counter, sat on the edge of the tub. When the result appeared, Serena's hand flew to her mouth, positive. She stared at the tiny test until her eyes blurred. Her heart felt two things at once, a burst of joy and a wave of terror. "Lord," she whispered, tears gathering. "What am I supposed to do with this?" Serena sat on her bedroom floor, leaning back against her bed, staring at the ceiling. A child, their child, a life formed during the days they still believed they had a future. She felt joy because she'd always wanted to be a mother. She imagined the laughter, the tiny hands, the soft baby smell. It warmed something inside her she thought had died. But fear struck harder. How would McKeel respond? Would he think she was lying? Would his family accuse her of timing it for sympathy? Would Priscilla insert herself into the narrative again? She placed her hands over her stomach, whispering, "I want you. I already love you. But I don't know if I'm strong enough to face all of this alone." Tears slipped onto her shirt. She wanted to tell McKeel. She wanted him to know. She wanted him to be part of this life. But she was also terrified of reopening the wound. "What if he hates me now?" she whispered to herself. "What if he thinks I'm trying to drag him back after he fought so hard to leave?" Serena swallowed hard. She waited until evening, when she thought he'd be off work. She dialed his number. "Your call cannot be completed." She tried again, and again, and again. Nothing. At first she assumed he blocked her, but the truth was different. After the blow-up with his parents and the divorce, McKeel had changed his number to escape non-stop family interference. He never imagined Serena would try to reach him on the old one. He never imagined she'd need him. Serena didn't know that. What she felt was rejection, a knife twisting in her heart. She sank into the couch, phone slipping from her hand. "He doesn't want to hear from me," she said softly, hugging herself. She cried until she fell asleep upright. The next day, she found courage to tell Cassandra and Otis. They sat in the living room, Serena clutching a pillow, eyes red. "Mama, Daddy, I'm pregnant." Her mother gasped softly. Her father froze. Then Cassandra moved closer and pulled Serena into her arms. "Oh, baby." Otis placed a hand on his daughter's back. His voice cracked. "You don't have to go through this alone." Serena sobbed quietly into her mother's shoulder. "I tried to tell him. He changed his number or something. I think he doesn't want anything to do with me anymore." Cassandra's jaw tightened. Her father looked heartbroken. Grandma Edna came by that evening, slowly settling into the armchair across from Serena. "Come sit, child," she said. Serena sat beside her. Edna took Serena's shaking hands. "You stronger than this moment, stronger than the fear, stronger than the pain. This baby ain't a mistake. This baby a blessing." Serena sniffed. "I'm scared." "Course you are," Edna said gently. "But fear don't mean you stop. It just mean you breathe deeper and keep moving." Serena whispered, "What about Michiel?" Edna's voice softened. "Sometimes men gotta grow on their own time. Some grow fast, some slow, but a baby got a way of waking up the soul. Don't force nothing. Just take care of you and that child. The rest gone unfold." Serena laid her head on her grandmother's shoulder and cried quietly. As the weeks went on, Serena's belly grew. The loneliness grew too. People at the library noticed the change. Some congratulated her. Others were politely curious, but Serena politely avoided details, protecting her peace. Her apartment felt too empty now, too full of memories, too close to the life she once thought she'd share with Michiel. Her grandmother insisted she move in with her. "You need support, baby, and I ain't taking no for an answer." So Serena packed her things slowly, folding clothes over her stomach, taking down pictures that once made her smile but now brought tears. Her grandmother's bungalow was warm, full of familiar smells: lavender, cornbread, old hymn books. Serena's room there was cozy, with sunlight breaking through thin curtains every morning. Serena felt safer, not fully healed, but held. Some nights she'd lie awake, rubbing her belly. "It's just us," she whispered to her son. "But I promise I'll give you everything I have." Months passed. Mikhail drowned himself in work, not out of ambition, but as a shield. The office became his escape. He avoided his penthouse, preferring long work nights, skipping meals, sleeping in conference rooms. His assistant began scheduling check-ins because he'd forget to eat. His board noticed he was on edge. His parents noticed he barely spoke. But he told no one the truth. He felt abandoned. He believed Serena had signed the divorce papers without hesitation. He believed she'd taken the settlement money and moved on. He believed she hated him. He believed he had ruined the one thing in his life that ever felt true. He didn't know she hadn't taken a penny. He didn't know she cried for weeks. He didn't know she tried to call him. He didn't know she was carrying his child. He didn't know anything except a lie his pain whispered. She didn't want you. He stood often at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Bradford Tower headquarters, staring down at Atlanta. The city lights blurred through tired eyes. He wondered if she ever thought about him. He wondered if she regretted ever meeting him. He wondered if her family hated him. He wondered if anything they shared had meant as much to her as it meant to him. But pride, heavy and poisonous, kept him silent, didn't follow the urge to look for her. He told himself he had to move on, even though he wasn't moving anywhere. He worked, he slept, barely. He existed, not lived. One quiet night, she lay in bed at Grandma Edna's house. The room glowed softly from a lamp. She rubbed her belly, feeling the baby shift under her palm. "Your daddy, he's a good man," she whispered, voice trembling. "He just got lost. We both did." A tear rolled down her cheek. "I hope you meet him someday. I hope he loves you the way I know he can." She closed her eyes, holding her bump gently. "I hope he comes back. Not for me, for you." In a tall, cold building across the city, Mikhail stood in front of the window, hands in his pockets. He whispered to the dark skyline. "I miss you, Serena." He said it softly, like a secret. He had no idea she wasn't alone anymore. He had no idea he wasn't just missing his wife. He was missing his child. He stared into the night, jaw tight, convincing himself he'd made peace with the silence. But he hadn't. Serena fell asleep curled around her stomach. Mikhail fell asleep on the office couch, still in his suit, both dreaming of the love they once had, both unaware of how close they were to colliding again. Their lives had split, but destiny had not. Their child, growing quietly in Serena's belly, would soon force their worlds back together. Not gently, not slowly, but dramatically. The story of their reunion hadn't started yet, but it was coming. The truth about that day, the day Mikhail stormed into Serena's grandmother's house, did not begin at the doorstep. It began hours earlier, long before he ever touched his steering wheel, long before he ever shouted Serena's name through the wooden door, long before he realized he wasn't just facing his ex-wife, he was facing his son. But to understand that moment, we must start where the pressure began building, inside a downtown boardroom where Mikhail thought he still had control over his life. He didn't. Mikhail had been in a meeting with company attorneys about a long-standing financial arrangement tied to his marriage. Even though the divorce was finalized, the legal responsibilities connected to property, insurance, and old agreements still needed unwinding. One attorney said something that made Mikhail sit up. "Mr. Bradford, there's an issue connected to your former spouse. She's still listed under a few financial documents. Also, there's a rumor circulating that she may be making claims under your name." At first, Mikhail frowned in confusion. What kind of claims? Serena would never, but the lawyer raised his hand cautiously. "It's likely misinformation, sir, but someone submitted an inquiry about medical coverage under your previous marital plan. We just need clarification." The words hit Mikhail like a punch. Medical coverage, Serena, rumors. His heart began racing, a slow burn rising in his chest. "Are you telling me Serena is trying to use my name? Is that what you're implying?" The attorney shook his head quickly. "We're not accusing her, but someone sent a message, suggesting she might be hiding something. We're trying to verify." Mikhail's jaw tightened. Who sent the message? The room went quiet until the attorney revealed the last thing Mikhail wanted to hear. It came from Priscilla. A sharp, cold silence filled the space. Mikhail's hands curled into fists under the table. He closed his eyes, trying to keep his temper down. "You're telling me she sent you a rumor about my ex-wife instead of keeping her distance?" "She implied Serena may currently be staying in a residence connected to your financial obligations," the lawyer added carefully. "She said it might become problematic." Michiel shot up from the chair. "Cancel the rest of today's sessions," he snapped. "But sir, I said cancel it." He walked out of the boardroom, ignoring every greeting, every question. His steps were hard, tight, fueled by something deeper than anger, fear, confusion, the ache of missing someone he pretended he was over. In the elevator, Michiel leaned his head against the wall. He had tried so hard these past months to bury everything, his regrets, the emptiness, the divorce he never wanted. He convinced himself Serena had moved on without him, signing papers quickly, vanishing from his world. But then there were flashes of memory. Her tears in the hallway, her shaking voice saying, "I can't keep fighting your whole world," her walking away, and the ring he found on the counter the next day. He had told himself she didn't care anymore. Now, hearing her name again, his chest squeezed painfully. Why would she be filing anything? Why now? He whispered to himself. He didn't want to think she was struggling. He didn't want to think she needed something he should have known about. He didn't want to think she was hiding something because she didn't trust him. But those worries twisted together into a sharp, reckless impulse. He had to see her. Today, right now. No more silence. No more pride. No more pretending. Michiel tracked down Serena's location through the last known mailing address from the legal documents, Grandma Edna's house. It was the same place her brother once mentioned after the breakup. As he drove through the east side of Atlanta, his mind raced. What if something's wrong? What if she's sick? What if she needs help and didn't want to ask? What if someone is using her name? What if Priscilla is trying to cause more trouble? What if... He shut his eyes for a moment at a red light. God, Serena, what happened to us? He loosened his tie, chest tight with worry and remorse. His hands kept gripping and releasing the steering wheel. By the time he reached the neighborhood, the burn inside him had grown into a storm, rage at the rumors, panic at the unknown, and a heart that had never stopped aching for the woman he lost. When he pulled up in front of Grandma Edna's house, he didn't think. He just got out of the car and marched to the door, his emotions boiling over. He didn't plan his words. That became clear when he knocked too loudly, loud enough for neighbors to peek through curtains. "Serena, open the door." He knocked again, harder. "Serena, I need to talk to you." It was desperation. Inside, Serena heard the commotion and froze. She had just fed the baby and was gently swaying him in her arms, humming softly. Her body tensed instantly. She knew that voice. She hadn't heard it in months. Her heart nearly stopped. When she opened the door, the world seemed to pause. Michiel's mouth was open mid-sentence, but the words died instantly. His breath caught. His entire body jolted as if someone punched the air out of him. Because there, standing in the doorway, was Serena, and a tiny newborn resting against her chest, little fingers curled near his chin. For the first time in months, Serena spoke his name out loud. Michiel. But he didn't look at her first. He looked at the baby. His eyes widened. His throat tightened. His hand instinctively touched his chest as if steadying his heart, then stopped completely, unable to move. What is this?" he whispered hoarsely. Serena held her breath, bracing for judgment, bracing for rejection, bracing for everything she'd feared these past months. "This is your son," she said quietly. Michiel's knees nearly buckled. A life he didn't know he created. He stared at the baby's face, at his small nose, the familiar cheekbones, the subtle shape of his eyes. He saw everything he had lost, everything he never deserved to hold again. What? His voice cracked. When? Serena's eyes filled. After the divorce was processed. "I tried to reach you, Michiel. I called your number. I tried." He swallowed hard, ashamed. "I changed it because of my family, not because of you. I didn't know." He pressed his hand against the doorframe, leaning forward slightly, as if the weight of realization was physically crushing him. "I didn't know," he repeated, softer, broken. Serena's voice wavered. "I would never hide your child from you. Ever." A tear rolled down his cheek. His hands shook. His breathing hitched. Everything inside him shattered and rebuilt in a single moment. "Serena," he whispered. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" She closed her eyes. I had no way to contact you, and after everything that happened, I was scared. Mikhail blinked rapidly, trying to find words. He couldn't. All he could see was the baby, breathing softly in Serena's arms. He wiped his face with his sleeve, chest trembling. Can I? He asked, barely audible, almost afraid of the answer. Serena nodded, gently, slowly. She shifted the baby into a comfortable position and stepped closer. Mikhail held out his hands, not confidently, but like a man holding something sacred. When she placed the baby in his arms, Mikhail inhaled sharply. The baby squirmed lightly, then settled. Mikhail stared down, tears falling freely. I missed everything, he whispered. Every moment, every second. And that's my fault. He shook his head, barely able to speak. You gave him life, and I wasn't there. You did all of this alone, and I wasn't there. A long silence held them, heavy, raw, honest. Then Mikhail kissed the top of his son's head and whispered, I'm here now. Before we continue, family, what would you do in Serena's shoes? Or in Mikhail's? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective might help someone watching. The living room in Grandma Edna's house was quiet, too quiet for the intensity swirling inside both Serena and Mikhail. The weight of the moment settled gently but heavily, like thick air, before a downpour. Mikhail still held the baby in his arms, sitting stiffly on the edge of the floral-patterned couch. The newborn lay peacefully against his chest, unaware that his existence had just blown open the locked doors between two broken hearts. Serena closed the front door slowly, her hand trembling slightly. She turned and leaned against it, watching Mikhail, not with softness, not with anger either, but with a cautious mix of disbelief, relief, and fear. He looked different holding their child. Younger, less like the billionaire CEO the world saw, and more like a man who had just been handed the truth he didn't know he had prayed for. He didn't look at Serena at first. He kept his gaze on the baby, as if memorizing every tiny detail, each breath, each twitch, each fragile expression. Serena wrapped her arms around herself. You should sit. He's only a few weeks old. I'm okay, Mikhail whispered, though his voice wavered. She slowly approached and sat in the chair across from him, carefully studying the tension shaping his posture. His shoulders were hunched. His jaw trembled when he thought she couldn't see. For a moment neither spoke. Then Mikhail finally lifted his eyes, red, glassy, full of hurt and apology. Serena. He exhaled softly. Please tell me everything. I need to understand. She felt her throat tighten. I'm not sure where to start. Start with why I didn't know, he whispered. Because every second I missed, it's tearing me apart. Serena took a steady breath. She'd imagined this conversation so many times, how it might feel, what she might say, how much she feared judgment or anger. But now, looking at the raw emotion in his face, she realized this wasn't about defending herself. It was about telling the truth, all of it. I tried to call you, Serena said quietly. Right after I found out I was pregnant, I called your number over and over. Mikhail's eyebrows pinched together. I didn't block you. I swear, Serena, I didn't. I know that now, she said softly. But back then, I didn't understand why your number wasn't working. I thought you were done with me completely, that you didn't want to hear my voice again. Her eyes lowered. I thought you wanted distance. I changed my number because of my parents, he said, voice breaking. They wouldn't stop calling. They kept blaming you for the marriage failing. I wanted silence. I wanted everything to stop. Serena swallowed hard. I didn't know that. I thought you chose to shut me out. He let out a shaking breath. If I had known, if I'd even guessed. His voice cracked and he looked back down at the baby. I would have gotten down on my knees and begged you not to go through this alone. Serena's eyes glistened, but I was alone, Mikhail. Completely. He winced, as if stabbed straight through the heart. She continued, voice trembling but steady. I told my family before anyone else. They were worried about me, how the stress would affect the pregnancy, how your world treated me before. She looked down. I didn't even know where to find you, and by then, I wasn't sure reaching out would help. I was scared you'd think I was trying to manipulate you with the baby. Mikhail's jaw tightened with pain. Serena, no, never. You could have told me anything, but could I? she asked quietly. Because when the divorce happened, the legal pressure came from your side. Your lawyers contacted me, cold, distant, pushing every detail through without you speaking to me directly. I felt like you didn't want to see me, like you were washing your hands of me. His face fell. Serena, I didn't even know they pushed that hard. My parents had more influence than I realized, and I didn't check what they were doing. That's on me. She looked away. Then there was the bribe. His breath caught. What bribe? Serena met his eyes directly, her voice calm but cutting. Your mother came to the library. She slid an envelope across the table and told me to think of my future without you in it. She said your family's reputation couldn't survive our relationship. She said I'd ruin your legacy. Michiel's face went pale. She did what? Serena nodded. She told me leaving you was the most loving thing I could do. Michiel's entire body stiffened with rage. Real rage. Not the prideful anger that led to their breakup, but the kind that comes from discovering a betrayal so deep it knocked the breath from his lungs. My mother bribed you to leave, he whispered. Not in those words, Serena said, but yes, that was the intent. Michiel covered his mouth with his free hand. Tears burned in his eyes. Serena, I didn't know. I swear on everything, I didn't know. She nodded once, tightly fighting her own emotions. I believe you, now. But at the time, I felt alone, cornered, judged. And then your friend Trevor started rumors about me. And Priscilla showed up, again, and your parents kept pressuring you. Michiel shook his head, voice breaking. I should have shut all of them down. I should have fought all of them. For you. For us. You were drowning, Serena said quietly. And so was I. Michiel finally looked at her, really looked at her. He took a deep breath. Then another. Serena, he said, voice trembling, I failed you. Not just once, not twice. I failed you in every moment that mattered. She looked stunned. He continued, words pouring out. Raw, unfiltered, honest. I let my family's world dictate too much. I let their voices drown out yours. I let my fear of disappointing them become bigger than my commitment to you. I let you stand alone while I tried to keep peace in a world that never wanted us together in the first place. Serena's lips parted slightly. He kept going. I should have protected you from them. I should have shut down their disrespect the moment it started. I should have cut off Priscilla the second she opened her mouth. I should have challenged my parents harder. I should have been your partner, not another burden. He looked back at the baby, tiny, sleeping, innocent, and I should have been here. For him, a tear fell onto the baby's blanket. I can't undo what I missed, the pregnancy, the birth, the nights you were scared, the days you were alone. But Serena, he looked up, eyes drowning in sincerity. I'm begging you, let me be his father, even if you never take me back, even if I'm nothing more than someone who shows up to hold him and help with whatever you need. I just want a chance to be in his life. Serena felt something shift inside her, not forgiveness yet, not certainty, but a quiet release of a weight she'd carried alone. She didn't rush to him. She didn't fold. She didn't melt. She simply breathed and said quietly, I'll never keep you from him, Michiel. Never. The baby suddenly fussed, tiny cries filling the room. Serena instinctively rose. He's hungry. Michiel stood too quickly, the baby squirming in his arms. Can I help? She hesitated, not because she didn't trust him, but because letting him help would mean letting him step back into a space he once broke. Still, she nodded. Sit. Support his head. I'll get his bottle. Michiel sat down slowly, holding the baby like something priceless. The baby cried louder, and Michiel panicked in a whisper, It's okay, Daddy's here. Serena returned with the bottle, gently guiding his hands. Tilt him a little more. Like this. Their fingers brushed, soft, familiar, almost painful. When the baby latched onto the bottle, Michiel let out a shaky breath of relief. Serena watched him silently. A father learning on the spot, a man humbled, a man trying, a man who once let pride destroy everything, now letting love rebuild something new. When the baby finished and drifted back to sleep, Michiel gently placed him in the bassinet near the sofa. Then he turned to Serena. I'll come back tomorrow, he said quietly. No lawyers, no family, just me. She didn't answer right away, but she nodded, slowly, cautiously, bravely. Okay. He let out a soft sigh. Thank you for letting me be here today. He walked to the door, pausing for a long moment. Not a goodbye, just a promise. I'll be back. Then he stepped out into the cool night air, closing the door behind him, leaving Serena and their baby inside, hearts trembling but changed. The healing had begun. Not fully, not perfectly, but truth had finally been spoken, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like hope. McKeel barely remembered the drive home. His hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles pale, heartbeat thundering in his ears. The night air outside his car was cool, but his body burned with a storm of emotion, rage, regret, awe, fear, and something even deeper, a fierce, newfound love for a child he had held for the very first time. Every time he blinked, he saw that small face again, his son, his own features reflected back at him in miniature. The realization didn't just shake him, it restructured something inside him. He wasn't just a man who had made mistakes, he was a father, and he had a responsibility to fix the world his son was going to be born into, starting with confronting the people who helped break the life he once had. Tonight, he wasn't just Michiel Bradford the CEO, he was Michiel Bradford the father, who had a newborn asleep in a bassinet across town, and that changed everything. When McKeel pulled into the long, manicured driveway of the Bradford estate, he didn't wait for the security lights to click on, or for the door to swing open automatically like it always did. He stormed inside. His father, William, was seated in the living room reading. His mother, Evelyn, was arranging some silver trays for an upcoming charity luncheon. Their elegant world looked the same way it always did, quiet, controlled, immaculate, but everything inside McKeel had changed. He didn't bother greeting them. "We need to talk," he said, voice sharp enough to slice through the room. Evelyn turned, surprised. "McKeel, it's late. Is something wrong with work?" "No," he said, stepping forward. "Not work. Something more important." William lowered his reading glasses. "Son, I have a child." The entire room froze. Evelyn stiffened like she'd been struck. I beg your pardon?" "A son," McKeel said, breathing unevenly. "I held him tonight for the first time." Evelyn's mouth parted in shock. William dropped his glasses completely. Evelyn's voice trembled. A child? You mean Serena's?" "Yes," McKeel said. "Serena's. Ours." Silence blanketed the room. His mother clutched the back of the sofa. Grandchild?" McKeel nodded once. "You have a grandson." The words were soft but carried the weight of an entire fractured history. Evelyn sank slowly into a chair. William stood, stunned. Why didn't we know?" McKeel laughed bitterly. "Why do you think? Because you made it impossible for her to ever feel safe coming to us. Because you attacked her, judged her, pressured her, and I let you. I didn't protect her when she needed it most." Evelyn's eyes filled. "McKeel, we didn't know. You didn't care to know," he snapped. "She tried to reach me. She tried. But I'd cut myself off from everything because of the chaos this family put her through." Evelyn bowed her head, trembling. "And you," he continued, pointing at her, "you went to her job. You offered her money to disappear. You told her she wasn't good enough for me. And because of what you did, because of what I didn't stop, Serena went through pregnancy alone." Evelyn whispered, "I didn't think she would actually leave." "She left because you pushed her out," McKeel said. "And because I let you." Tears slid down Evelyn's cheeks. "I thought I was protecting you, our family, our name. I thought she would ruin everything." McKeel shook his head slowly. "No, Mom. What ruined everything was your fear, and my silence." He stepped back, breath shaking. "I missed the entire pregnancy. I missed the birth. I missed the first nights, the first sounds, the first moments, all of it. And it wasn't because of her." His voice cracked. "It was because of us." William rubbed his forehead, his voice low. "Son, we made mistakes. We see that now. Do you?" McKeel whispered. "Do you understand what it means that I held him tonight for the first time?" Neither parent spoke. McKeel's voice softened but filled with pain. "He looks like me. He looks like her. He's perfect. And he could have grown up never knowing me, because I let pride and pressure control my life." Evelyn broke entirely, covering her face. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm not asking for an apology for me," Michiel said. "I'm telling you the truth. I won't let our son grow up in the same environment that destroyed my marriage. So if you want to be part of his life, You have to accept Serena, fully, completely, without judgment, without conditions. Evelyn nodded rapidly, tears spilling. William whispered, "Is it too late?" McKeel looked toward the door, thinking of Serena rocking the baby tonight, humming softly in her grandmother's house. "I don't know," he said honestly, "but I intend to try." Back at the bungalow, Cassandra walked into Serena's room to check on her. Pastor Otis came in behind her, still in his evening shirt. Grandma Edna sat in her rocking chair, hands folded, watching her granddaughter quietly. They had heard the front door close when McKeel left. "He came to see the baby," Serena said softly, rubbing her son's tiny stomach. "He found out by accident, and he came straight here." Cassandra exhaled. "How did it go?" Serena hugged her knees. "He was different. Not angry, not defensive, just hurting, and honest." She paused. "He apologized. Really apologized." Pastor Otis nodded thoughtfully. "A man can say sorry, but a changed man shows it." Serena looked down. "He said he wants to be a father, even if he and I never get back together." Grandma Edna rocked slowly. "And how do you feel about that, child?" Serena's voice softened. "I want my son to know his father. I've never wanted to deny him that." Cassandra touched her shoulder gently. "But what about you, baby? Can your heart take letting McKeel in again?" Serena's eyes glistened. "I don't know. Part of me still loves him, and part of me is terrified of being hurt again." Pastor Otis leaned forward. "Fear is natural. But don't let fear raise that child. Let truth raise him. Let love raise him, even if that love ain't the same shape it used to be." Serena nodded slowly. Grandma Edna gave her a warm but firm look. "You ain't deciding tonight. You're deciding over time. A boy deserves a father who tries, and you deserve peace. The rest will reveal itself." Serena leaned her head against her grandmother's knee. She wasn't ready to jump back in, but the anger she once carried felt lighter now. Maybe not gone, but bearable. Later that night, McKeel lay awake in his penthouse, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in months, he didn't reach for work or pour himself into meetings. He thought only of Serena, and of his son, and of the family he had once destroyed and now desperately wanted to rebuild. Across town, Serena sat in her room with her baby asleep on her chest. She stroked his soft cheek. "Your daddy held you today," she whispered, "and he cried." She closed her eyes. "That means something. I don't know what it means yet, but it means something." Both families, so different, so divided, found themselves asking the same question. Can love be repaired after this much damage? The next morning, McKeel returned to Grandma Edna's house. He knocked softly this time. Serena opened the door, the baby in her arms. They stared at each other, unsure, hopeful, wounded, brave. McKeel swallowed, voice steady but gentle. "Serena, can I take you and the baby to his next doctor's appointment?" He paused. As a real team, Serena's breath caught. That question meant partnership. It meant responsibility. It meant presence. It meant effort. It meant healing. She hesitated, fear flickering in her eyes, then slowly, softly, bravely, she said, "Yes." The next morning felt different, not because the sun rose any brighter or because the city of Atlanta suddenly felt softer. It was different because McKeel showed up. Not late, not hesitant, not uncertain. He arrived exactly on time, dressed simply in jeans and a dark shirt, carrying a nervous determination that clung to him like a second layer of skin. When Serena opened the front door, he was already reaching for the diaper bag he'd bought the night before. "Morning," he said quietly. Serena nodded. "Good morning." It wasn't tense, but it wasn't relaxed either. It was a careful in-between space, one that only people who shared a history as deep as theirs could stand in without falling apart. She held the baby, still sleeping, tiny breaths warming her shoulder. McKeel's eyes softened the second he saw him. "Is he ready for his appointment?" he asked gently. "Yes," Serena said. "Let me get his blanket." As she turned, McKeel stepped inside, his eyes tracing the room. Everything was warm and familiar, decorated with pieces of Serena's childhood. He had never been inside Grandma Edna's home before the day the truth was revealed, and standing here now, he realized how much life had happened within these walls while he was drowning in heartbreak somewhere else. Serena wrapped the baby and handed him over. McKeel took his son carefully, supporting his head exactly as she taught him the night before. Still feels unreal, he whispered. Serena's heart tightened. Let's go before the waiting room gets too full. The pediatric clinic wasn't far, but the ride felt quiet and strangely intimate. Not romantic, just two people attempting to rebuild a road they once tore apart. Inside, Serena checked in while Michiel paced slowly with their son in his arms. He was protective in a way Serena had never seen. Anytime someone walked too close, Michiel shifted slightly, putting himself between them and the baby. When the nurse came to take vitals, Michiel looked terrified. That needle better be small, he muttered. Serena laughed, an unexpected soft sound that floated between them and settled into something warm. He's going to be fine, she said. But does it have to be a needle? Michiel whispered under his breath. He's so little. You survived shots when you were a baby, Serena teased. Not willingly, he said, eyes wide. Serena shook her head, smiling in a way she hadn't in months. When the baby cried during the exam, Michiel's entire body tensed. Hey, you're safe, he whispered, rocking gently. Serena watched him, really watched him, and something inside her shifted, not completely back to love, but toward recognition. He wasn't the man she left. He was someone growing, learning, trying. During checkout, Serena stepped aside to answer a text from her mother while Michiel rocked the baby against his shoulder. She overheard him talking quietly to their son. I'm not missing anything from now on, little man. I promise. Her throat tightened. After the appointment, Michiel hesitated. Do you want to grab some coffee, just to talk about next steps for his schedule? Serena wasn't sure, but she also wasn't ready for the moment to end. Sure, she said. They found a small cafe near Grant Park. It smelled like roasted beans and warm pastries. Serena ordered her usual vanilla latte. Michiel, trying to impress and failing adorably, attempted to order something he clearly didn't understand. I'll have the oat milk, cinnamon foam, cold. What does that say? Shaken. Why would you shake coffee? He frowned at the menu. The barista grinned politely. Serena covered her mouth, laughing. Just get regular drip coffee, Michiel. But your drink sounds fancy. You don't even know what it is. Doesn't mean I can't try. She shook her head. Drip coffee. Trust me. He sighed dramatically. Fine. But it better taste good. They sat by the window, the baby asleep in the stroller beside them. For a few minutes it was quiet, just the sound of people chatting around them and the clinking of ceramic cups. Then Michiel looked at her. I miss talking to you, he said gently. Serena stared into her cup. We didn't do much talking at the end. I know, he said, and I regret that every day. She didn't answer, but her silence wasn't angry, just cautious. He cleared his throat. So, I bought a crib. Serena blinked. You bought a what? A crib, he repeated, and a car seat, and a stroller, and a baby monitor, and apparently diaper sizes come in numbers I don't understand, so I bought all of them. Serena burst into genuine laughter. Michiel! He shrugged helplessly. I panic bought parenthood. You don't need all that yet, she teased. I figured I'd rather have too much than not enough. He paused. I want him to be comfortable when he's with me. Serena's smile faded into something softer. You really mean that? He nodded slowly. I want to be present, for everything. Her heart tugged hard. That afternoon back at Edna's house, Serena handed Michiel a diaper and said, Your turn. His eyes widened with dread. Right now? But he's awake. That's the best time, she said. No, Michiel whispered dramatically. That is a terrible time. She laughed again and showed him how to do it. Open the diaper, lift gently, wipe carefully, tuck the new diaper under. But when Michiel tried it alone, he held the wipe like it might attack him. The baby kicked once and Michiel jumped. Why is he moving? Serena, why is he moving? He's a baby, she said, amused. That's what they do. Can he stop for 30 seconds, please? Serena was laughing so hard she had to hold onto the dresser. In the end, Michiel managed, with a crooked diaper but a proud smile. Success, he declared. Barely, she teased. But in her eyes, something there sparkled, a glimmer of the love they once built. Later that week, Cassandra invited both families for a small dinner, an attempt to create peace after everything that had happened. Serena was anxious. Michiel was determined. The baby was blissfully unaware. The Bradford family arrived first. Evelyn's hands trembled as she held a wrapped gift. William looked uncomfortable but sincere. Serena stayed near the kitchen doorway, watching. When Evelyn saw her, she stepped forward slowly. "Serena," Evelyn said quietly, voice thick, May I hold him?" Serena hesitated, but she stepped closer and placed the baby gently in Evelyn's arms. Evelyn gasped at his tiny weight. A tear slipped down her cheek. "He's beautiful," she whispered. William placed a hand on her back, his voice low. "He looks like both of you." Cassandra approached with a warm, firm smile. "Welcome. We're glad you're here." The room's tension softened. Over dinner, conversation stayed light. Food, work, church updates, until Pastor Otis cleared his throat and stood. "I think it's time we pray." Everyone bowed their heads. "Lord, we come together tonight, not separated by fear or anger, but united by new life. Heal what was broken, strengthen what is growing, and let this child see a world where families come together, not fall apart." Serena felt tears welling. Michelle squeezed her hand under the table. She didn't pull away. After dinner, Evelyn stood. Her voice shook. "Serena, I owe you more than a private apology. I owe you one in front of everyone here." The room fell silent. "I was wrong," Evelyn said. "Wrong to judge you. Wrong to interfere. Wrong to project my fears onto your relationship. I hurt you. And in doing so, I hurt my own son. I pushed you away when I should have supported you. And I will carry that guilt for a long time." Serena's lips parted, stunned. Evelyn continued, "If you're willing, I want to be better, not for my reputation, not for show, but for my grandson, and for the woman who gave him life." Serena blinked hard, emotion clogging her throat. "Thank you, Mrs. Bradford." "Evelyn," she corrected gently. "Please." The baby fussed lightly. Serena instinctively reached for him, but Michiel beat her to it, picking him up smoothly and rocking him while whispering soft sounds. Everyone watched, and Serena saw something new. A father who wasn't running, a man who wasn't hiding, a partner who was returning piece by piece. Later that night, as guests were leaving, Cassandra pulled Serena aside. "How you feeling, baby?" Serena pressed her hand to her chest, watching Michiel buckle their son into the car seat. "I still love him," she whispered. "I never stopped." Cassandra smiled sadly. "Loving someone doesn't mean jumping right back in, but love makes rebuilding possible." Serena nodded, her voice soft. "I'm scared, Mama." "I know," Cassandra said. "Just take it slow, step by step. Let his actions show you who he is now." Serena looked toward Michiel, who kissed their son's forehead before gently closing the car door. Her heart trembled. Maybe, just maybe, love wasn't lost. Maybe it was just waiting for healing. The next few weeks unfolded with a kind of fragile hope that neither Serena nor Michiel dared to name out loud. They were XIO parenting now, officially, consistently, intentionally. And while Serena still held part of her heart in cautious hands, even she couldn't deny how different things felt. Michiel wasn't moving like the man she once loved blindly. He was moving like a man who had woken up, humbled, and ready to prove himself one day at a time. But life has its own timing, and on a cool, cloudy Saturday morning, Serena woke to something she never expected. Mikey wasn't breathing right. It started with a soft wheeze around dawn, nothing too alarming at first. Babies caught colds all the time, she told herself. She held him close, rocked him gently, kissed his forehead. He felt warm but not burning. "It's okay, little man," she whispered, rubbing his back. "Mommy's right here." But an hour later, he let out a thin cry, weak, strained, and unlike anything she had ever heard from him. His tiny chest moved too fast, almost as if he couldn't catch a full breath. Serena's heart jerked. Panic flared under her ribs. She lifted him, holding him upright. "Come on, baby, come on." But the breathing didn't settle. By the time she grabbed her phone with trembling fingers, tears had already filled her eyes. She didn't hesitate. She didn't call her mom. She didn't call Grandma Edna. Her first call was Michiel. It rang only once. "Serena?" His voice was groggy, thick with sleep. "Everything okay?" "No." Serena choked. "It's Mikey. He's not breathing right. Something's wrong. Michiel, I'm scared." Whatever sleep was left in his voice disappeared instantly. "I'm on my way," he said sharply. Don't wait for me. Go to the hospital now. I'll meet you there." 15 minutes later, Serena burst through the automatic doors of the nearest emergency room. Mikey was bundled in his blanket against her chest, his breathing fast and shallow. A nurse rushed over immediately, guiding her toward an exam room. "He's having trouble breathing," Serena gasped. "Please, please help him." The nurse took Mikey from her arms with gentle urgency. Serena felt her heart drop as if gravity doubled. Watching someone else carry her child away, those moments stretched like forever. She stood frozen for a second, her entire world spinning. Then she felt a warm hand grip her shoulder. Serena, Mikhail. He must have driven like a man possessed. His clothes were barely thrown on, his hair uncombed, and his face looked like he had sprinted the entire way. Without asking, he wrapped her in his arms. She collapsed into him, shaking. "He's inside," she whispered. "I don't know what's wrong. I don't—" "We're here now," Mikhail murmured, kissing the top of her head with a desperation that said he felt every ounce of her fear. "He's going to be okay. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." For once, those words didn't sound like a promise. They sounded like the truth. Minutes later, the exam room door opened and a doctor approached them. "He's stable," she said calmly. "He's struggling with a respiratory infection, and his airway's a little tight. We're giving him oxygen and monitoring him." Serena nearly collapsed from relief. Mikhail's grip tightened around her waist, steadying her. "Can we see him?" he asked, his voice low. In a moment, the doctor said, "We'll let you know when he's ready." Serena nodded, wiping tears with a shaky hand. It was then that the rest of their families arrived. First, Serena's parents. Cassandra rushed through the waiting room like a storm, holding Serena's face in both hands. Pastor Otis placed a steadying hand on Mikhail's shoulder. Then came William and Evelyn. They walked in looking pale and anxious, their eyes scanning frantically until they spotted Mikhail and Serena. Evelyn stepped forward first, her voice trembling. "Where is he? Is he okay?" Serena nodded slowly. "The doctor said he's stable." Evelyn exhaled a breath that nearly buckled her knees. In that moment, no one cared about history. No one cared about ego. There were no sides, only one frightened family. Mikhail stood in the center of them all, running a hand down his face and taking a shaky breath. Pastor Otis nodded toward the small prayer room beside the waiting area. "Let's pray." Everyone followed, Serena leaning on Mikhail holding her close, their parents trailing silently behind them. They entered a dim, quiet space with simple wooden chairs and soft lighting. Pastor Otis placed a hand on his Bible but didn't open it. Instead, he looked around the circle of loved ones, black and white, hurting, scared, yet united. "Lord," he began softly, "we come together today for this child. We come as one family, asking for your protection and your healing. We ask for your peace over his mother and father. We ask for understanding, patience, forgiveness, and wisdom. And most of all, we ask for your strength as we stand here together. Amen." When he finished, Serena swiped at her eyes. Evelyn sniffed into a tissue. Even William cleared his throat and blinked hard. Then Mikhail did something no one expected, not even Serena. He sat down, covered his face, and cried. Not the silent tears he used to hide, not the stiff emotional retreat of the old Mikhail. Serena dropped to her knees in front of him. Hey! She cupped his face gently. "Mikey's okay. The doctor said he's stable. His voice cracked. I thought I was going to lose him." "You're not," Serena whispered. "He's strong. He's okay." He leaned into her hand like a man who had finally stopped pretending to be made of steel. "Thank you for calling me first," he whispered. "You're his father," she replied, squeezing his hand. "I knew you'd come. I'll always come," Mikhail said softly. "Not like before, not halfway, not when it's convenient. I'm here, fully here." Serena felt something shift inside her chest, something warm, something old, something familiar and dangerous. Hope. A nurse appeared a moment later. "You can see him now." Serena and Mikhail followed her into the small room. Mikey lay in a crib with a tiny oxygen mask over his nose, his little chest rising more calmly now. Serena brushed a hand over his soft hair and kissed his forehead. Mikhail stood close behind her, one hand resting on her back. He didn't try to take over. He didn't act like he knew better. He just stood with her, steady and present. A long silence filled the room, quiet, tender, healing. "He looks so peaceful," Mikhail whispered. "Like he knows we're both here." Serena swallowed hard. "He loves you. He saved me," Mikhail said quietly. "Both of you did." Serena turned her head slightly. "What do you mean?" Mikhail kept his eyes on their son. "I've been in therapy for months now." She blinked. "Therapy?" He nodded. "I didn't want to tell you until I had something real to show for it. I've been working on myself, on how I handle pressure, how I let my parents influence me, how I never learned to communicate well. I've been trying to unlearn everything that made me lose you in the first place." Serena stared at him, stunned. "And I realized something," Mikhail said, finally meeting her eyes. "I didn't know how to be a husband. Not the right way, not to you, but I can learn. I have been learning." Serena's breath hitched. Mikhail stepped closer, voice low and honest. "I'm not here to rush you or to force anything. I want a chance, not just as Mikey's father, but as your partner again, as your husband again. If you'll ever have me." Her heart thudded painfully. "Mikhail," she whispered. "I know you're scared," he said softly. "I know I hurt you. But look at me now. I didn't run today. I didn't hide in work. I didn't shut down. I'm here. I'm growing. And I'm not going anywhere." Serena didn't answer, not because she didn't feel something, but because she felt too much. She looked down at Mikey breathing softly under the oxygen mask. Their love made this child. Their pain had shaped the last year of their lives, and now their growth had brought them right back here, to this moment where anything could happen. Mikhail gently touched her arm. "I'm not asking now," he whispered. "I'm just telling you my heart." Outside, the sky had turned to deep evening. The families waited together quietly, united by fear and hope. As Serena and Mikhail stepped back into the hallway hours later, Mikey finally sleeping comfortably in her arms, Mikhail looked at her under the soft hospital lights. "Serena," he murmured, "I'll wait for your answer as long as it takes." She didn't speak, but she didn't walk away from him, and that alone told him everything. The weeks after the hospital scare felt strangely like watching dawn break after a long night. Slow, gentle, and full of colors Serena wasn't sure she remembered how to trust. Mikey recovered steadily, his breathing returning to its soft, steady rhythm. Serena found herself checking on him more often than usual, watching the little rise and fall of his chest as if it held the answers to every question she'd ever asked. And Mikhail, well, he showed up, not in the grand, dramatic ways he once used to when he thought a bouquet or a gift could fix broken things. No, this was different. This was a man rebuilding his house brick by brick, mindful and patient, never demanding that Serena meet him halfway before he proved he could stand on his own. He attended every doctor's appointment without fail, even if it meant leaving meetings early or irritating his board. He never said it out loud, but Serena could tell by the way he rushed in, still in a button-up, tie slightly crooked, that he'd dropped everything just to make sure she and Mikey weren't alone. During one appointment, as the pediatrician talked through Mikey's recovery schedule, Serena noticed Mikhail holding his breath each time the doctor's voice dipped. She nudged him lightly. "Relax," she whispered. "He's doing great." Mikhail exhaled, laughing softly. "I know, he scared years off my life." Serena smiled. "Parenthood will do that." He looked at her then, really looked, and warmth flickered between them, old warmth, familiar warmth, but laced with something new, maturity. After every appointment, they stopped for coffee. It became an unspoken tradition. Serena ordered her caramel latte. Mikhail ordered a plain black coffee, still trying to cut down on sugar the way Serena once teased him to. They'd sit outside, the Atlanta breeze brushing past them, talking quietly about Mikey, about life, about small things that felt strangely big. And sometimes, as Serena sipped her latte, she'd catch Mikhail smiling at her like he used to. Soft, tender, grateful. Not entitled, not impatient, just present. One morning, while Mikey napped in his stroller beside them, Mikhail leaned back and whispered, "Do you realize we haven't argued once this week?" Serena smirked. "Maybe we're finally growing up." "Maybe," he said thoughtfully. Or maybe we finally learned how not to lose each other. The spark between them was unmistakable. Serena felt it but didn't say it. She wasn't ready to trust the spark, not yet. But she didn't deny it either. It was Serena's mother, Cassandra, who suggested a Sunday gathering at their home. "It's time," she said when Serena hesitated. "Mikey deserves to see both families together, and y'all need to start rewriting this chapter." So that Sunday afternoon, the families came together. Serena's childhood home buzzed with the usual weekend warmth, pots clattering in the kitchen, gospel music playing softly from a speaker, and the smell of roasted chicken filling every corner. Serena's brothers were already arguing about the Falcons. Grandma Edna was giving cooking advice no one had asked for. And then the doorbell rang. Mikhail stood on the porch with his parents beside him. William held a small gift bag. Evelyn clutched a wrapped present to her chest as if afraid it would disappear. Serena opened the door, and the moment stretched long. But then Evelyn stepped forward. "May we come in?" she asked quietly. Serena nodded, stepping aside. Inside, Serena's mother hugged William and then Evelyn, and for a heartbeat, Serena saw something soften in Evelyn's eyes, something humbled. Mikhail stood close behind his parents, watching every move with quiet hope. Once everyone settled, Pastor Otis cleared his throat. "Before we eat, I'd like to pray." Everyone held hands around the dining table, Serena's hand in Mikhail's on one side and Cassandra's on the other. The moment was full, heavy, hopeful. Pastor Otis prayed for peace, for unity, for old wounds to heal and new beginnings to grow strong. When he said, "Amen," Serena found herself squeezing Mikhail's hand before she let go. Then came the moment Serena didn't expect. Evelyn stood. Everyone looked up. She held onto the back of her chair for support. "I want to say something," she began, voice shaking. "To all of you, but especially to you, Serena." A hush fell over the room. Evelyn inhaled shakily. "I wronged you, deeply. I judged you for things that had nothing to do with your heart. I let pride and old thinking blind me to the woman my son loved, and I nearly cost him the two most important people in his life." Serena's eyes widened. Cassandra took a soft breath. William placed a hand gently on his wife's shoulder. Evelyn continued, tears gathering. "I am sorry. I am deeply, profoundly sorry. And I hope, no, I pray, that one day you'll forgive me. You didn't deserve what I did. And I want to do better. For you, for Michiel, and for my grandson." Serena didn't expect to cry, but she did. The pain of what happened still lived somewhere in her chest, but Evelyn's humility cracked something open. Grandma Edna sniffed loudly. "Well," she announced, "that's a start." Everyone chuckled quietly. Evelyn wiped her eyes with a napkin. "Serena, if you'll have me in your life, and in Mikey's, I'll spend the rest of my days proving that I can be the family you should have had from the start." Serena stood slowly. She walked to Evelyn and hugged her. Evelyn gasped, stunned, then hugged her back with all the sincerity she had left in her. Mikhail watched with tears in his eyes. William squeezed his shoulder. Cassandra brushed away a tear. Pastor Otis whispered, "Thank you, Lord." That hug didn't erase the past, but it began the future. After dinner, Serena stepped outside for some air. The sun was lowering, warm orange streaking across the sky. The breeze tugged playfully at her hair. Mikhail followed, leaning on the porch railing beside her. "You okay?" he asked gently. Serena nodded. "Yeah, just processing everything." "That was a big moment," Mikhail said softly. She looked at him from the corner of her eye. "She meant it." "I know she did," he replied. "And she knows she has a long way to go. We all do." They stayed quiet for a moment. Then Mikhail spoke again, so softly she almost didn't catch it. "I've missed this." Serena turned slightly. "Missed what?" "You," he swallowed. "Being close to you, talking to you, standing beside you like this. It feels natural again, like we're finding a rhythm." Serena felt heat bloom in her chest. She looked down at her hands. "It's familiar, good familiar." She hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah." He let out a breath of relief. "And Serena," he murmured, turning toward her fully, "I meant what I said at the hospital. I'm not running again. I'm not letting fear or pride or anyone else dictate how I show up. Not ever again." Serena's throat tightened. Mikhail continued, voice rich with sincerity, but I'm also not rushing you. I want you to take your time. I want you to choose me only if it feels right, only if you believe I can truly be the man you need. She looked up at him then, really looked. He wasn't the frantic, immature partner she once walked away from. He wasn't the man who let his parents whisper doubts into his ears. He wasn't the man who hid behind work or ran from conflict. This was a man who had learned, a man who had cried openly for his son, a man who knelt at hospital bedsides and held babies at 3 a.m. without complaint, a man who apologized, listened, grew, and she felt something shift, something real, but she didn't speak. Instead, she took a tiny step closer to him, not an answer, but not a rejection either. Mikhail inhaled deeply, hope flickering across his face as he whispered, I can wait, Serena, for however long it takes. 3 months later, everything felt different. Not perfect, not magically healed, but stronger, brighter, rooted. Serena and Mikhail had rebuilt trust slowly, carefully. They talked more honestly than ever before. They co-parented with a kind of unity that surprised even themselves, and somewhere within all that, somewhere between shared baby baths and late-night feedings, love began to breathe again. Not the love born from passion alone, but the love born from choice. And when Mikhail asked Serena one evening, with no ring, no theatrics, just sincerity, would you like to plan a small ceremony with me? Something for us, for Mikey, for our families? She didn't panic. She didn't run. Not yet. But a vow renewal, a recommitment, an acknowledgement of everything they had survived and everything they hoped to build. They chose Piedmont Park, under the willow tree, the very place where they had shared one of their happiest memories years before. Family and a handful of close friends gathered in a semicircle as Serena walked toward Mikhail, wearing a soft cream-colored dress with Mikey in her arms. Mikhail wore a simple navy suit, his eyes never leaving hers. Pastor Otis officiated. We stand here today, he began, not to start something new, but to restore something precious. Mikey giggled and grabbed at Mikhail's tie, making everyone laugh. Serena handed the baby to her mother as Mikhail took her hands. I stand here, he said, voice steady, because I finally learned who I want to be, and because I refuse to go another day without telling you that I choose you, again and again. Serena's eyes glistened. I stand here because even when we broke apart, I never stopped believing in the version of us that could grow stronger, if we had the courage to try again. Then Evelyn stepped forward unexpectedly. If I may, she said quietly. People turned. Evelyn placed a hand on her heart. Serena, thank you for loving my son even when I failed him. Thank you for giving him a family. Thank you for giving me a grandson. I hope I can spend the rest of my life proving that I finally see you the way I should have from the start. Serena hugged her. The moment felt like history being corrected. Pastor Otis smiled. Well, if there's no objection, let's renew these vows. Everyone laughed softly. Mikhail and Serena repeated their promises, this time without fear, without pressure, without the weight of 1,000 eyes. Just love. Just truth. Just growth. When Mikhail kissed Serena, Mikey clapped his little hands, making everyone laugh and wipe tears at the same time. It wasn't a perfect ending. It was a new beginning. A real one, built on the lessons learned the hard way. The narrator closed the story with clarity. Love can't erase mistakes, but it can transform people willing to grow. Family approval may falter at first, but hearts can change. Communication, humility, and consistency build bonds stronger than pride. Unity thrives when people choose to see each other, not status, not expectation, not fear. And forgiveness, when given wisely, is one of the greatest forms of power. Serena and Mikhail weren't just lovers rekindling romance. They were partners, parents, a family rebuilt from the ashes of misunderstanding, stronger, wiser, and united. Mikey toddled between them beneath the willow tree, tugging at both their hands as if urging them toward the future. And they followed, together. And tell us in the comments, what was the most powerful lesson you took from Serena and Mikhail's journey?